Hello and welcome guys. Make yourselves comfortable and enjoy. Please consider supporting this channel on Ko-Fi, link down in the description. Well, let's continue now. This is Necromancer of the Shadows, Chapter 551. Evan clenched his teeth so hard that veins began to appear all over his face. Before coming to Naph City, he had decided that he would not participate in any battle, and would only focus on increasing the ranks of his monarch corps because of his injured soul. But because of the effect of his title, not only did he participate in battle, but he even used his skills without caring about anything that further damaged his soul. Now his soul was 9% damaged, and since his emotions already returned to normal, the pain he was feeling was simply unbearable. He took out 3A rank cores and stuffed them in his mouth. His monarch physique activated, and all the cores turned into energy that rushed towards his monarch core. Because of absorbing 3 cores at the same time, Evan felt his body was about to explode due to the vast amount of energy. But the physical pain that was coming due to the vast amount of energy was nothing when compared to the pain that was coming from his soul. So he didn't care about it, and continued to refine the energy of the 3 cores. As his core started to absorb the energy, the pain coming from his soul once again started to decrease. Although the effect was not as good as before because his soul was now 9% damaged, it was still great relief for him. F***K, I never want to experience this kind of situation ever again, Evan said, while taking deep breaths. He opened his status window and looked at his title section to see if there were any changes in his The Cursed One title, but all he saw in its details were question marks. What kind of F***ed-up title is this? If this sh**t keeps affecting me like this, I might die one day. Evan tried to stand up, but his whole body was shaking. He took out the body of a B-rank monster, and used energy devouring on it. As his core refined the energy of the monster's body, his condition started to stabilize. He looked at his shadow undeads, and saw most of them were destroyed. There were just 10,000 shadow undeads left from the initial 33,000. Most of the shadow undeads were destroyed because of the shockwaves. Evan said with a twitching mouth, and used shadow resurrection on the golden lion. He used a large number of souls, so that the shadow resurrection wouldn't fail, and once again curse his title, which forced him to damage the body of the lion so much. Damn it. Now I can't even use Shadow Resurrection properly. Evan started to sweat when he activated Shadow Resurrection, because unlike before, now he was feeling a sharp pain even while using this skill. Because of using a large number of souls, the Shadow Resurrection was successful, and soon a 20 meters tall shadow undead of Golden Lion came out from the dead body, and stood in front of him. You know, I want to name you Motherfucker because you are also one of the reasons why I am in this condition, Evan said to the shadow undead of Golden Lion, after it stood in front of him. The Golden Lion looked at Evan with confusion written all over its face. It could not understand why Evan was angry at it. He first killed it in a brutal way for no reason, and now he wanted to give it a foul name. The Golden Lion really wanted to know what its crime was, but there was no one to tell it anything. Seeing how the shadow undead of Golden Lion was looking at him in confusion and disbelief, Evan felt a little awkward. He also didn't know why he killed the lion in such a brutal way, so he was not sure what to say. Forget it, let's get going since I let that sonic bat escape earlier. Evan muttered after a moment of silence and called Ariel. Ariel came down from the sky, and Evan sat down on its back. Most of his shadow energy was used up because he was continuously turning monsters into shadow undeads. So this time he absorbed the souls of all the monsters that were killed by his shadow undeads, using the soul absorption skill. After absorbing their souls using soul absorption skill, he put away their bodies and started to move forward once again. While moving forward, he sent a message to the other 6 groups of shadow undeads, and asked them to come back. Now that he can't make new shadow undeads, it was pointless to let them clear the city individually. While Evan was moving forward, the sonic bat returned to the center of the city, where Damian was organizing the monsters. When Damian howled sonic bat's whole body shaking and it came alone, his heart sank, and he quickly asked it what happened. Golden Lion is dead, Sonic Bat said in a shaky voice when it remembered the skinless body of Golden Lion. Without hiding anything, it told Damian everything. When Damian heard about thousands of black monsters, he suddenly remembered what Sarah told him about. when she asked him to escape from Naph City, and finally understood the identity of the person who killed the Golden Lion and Lightning Horse. "Why is that bastard here?" Damian cursed under his breath and said in an angry voice. According to the information that he received from Sarah, he knew Evan was more powerful than an average S-ranker, and he could also summon many high-ranking monsters. "It will be difficult for us to deal with him now that our 2 S-rankers are already dead," Damian muttered in a low voice, and a hesitant expression appeared on his face. But the hesitation on his face soon turned into determination, and he took out his communication crystal. His determination wavered for a moment after taking out the crystal, but in the end he still activated it and contacted someone. Soon the call was contacted and the person on the other end answered. "What's the matter?" Damian heard a sweet voice that sent a shiver running down his body, but he controlled his emotions and told everything that happened recently. The person on the other end was silent for a moment after hearing Damian, but the silence did not last long and Damian soon received a reply. "Retreat from the center of the city and come towards the west gate. I will take care of him." Damian's eyes lit up when he heard this, and he quickly agreed to retreat from there. "Let's go. We need to back away from here before that guy comes," Damian said to Sonic Bat, and started to make preparations to back away from there. As all of these things were happening, a lightning horse was hovering high above them, looking at everything with its burning purple eyes. Chapter 552. Wind Walk. When activated, you can use the power of the wind element to instantly move within an area of 10 kilometers around you. Cooldown time: 1 minute. Evan looked at the details of the skill that he got while fighting against the Golden Lion and raised an eyebrow. This skill is similar to Blink, but unlike Blink's skill that can teleport away the user. This skill gives the user a burst of speed to appear anywhere within 10 kilometers of the area around them, Evan muttered to himself after reading the details of the skill. But there was one thing that he couldn't understand. "I have never heard of anyone who has acquired skill like this. Most people get their skills after increasing the rank of their cores, or by using the skill books, but Evan never heard about anyone who received a skill while fighting against someone. Is this also an effect of this damn title?" Evan still remembers how he entered into a trance-like state for a split second before he received this skill. Something like that never happened to him before, so he thought that it was also the effect of the Cursed One title. "When will this worshipper of the question mark cult show me the details of this title?" Evan said out loud and closed his status window. He looked at his shadow undeads who just killed another group of monsters and nodded his head in satisfaction. Most of the shadow undeads that he created after coming into Naph City already disappeared because they were not saved. Now, other than Lightning Horse and Golden Lion, there were just a few other shadow undeads that were left behind. Evan already saved Golden Lion and Lightning Horse, so they were already part of his permanent shadow undeads. He put away the bodies of the monsters that were killed by his shadow undeads, and used shadow sensors. Just as he used shadow sensors, he saw a large army of monsters moving somewhere. In the lead of the army, he saw a middle-aged man who had white hair and a robust body. Just what the hell is this guy thinking? Evan furrowed his eyebrows when he saw Damian moving away from the center of the city. After Sonic Bat delivered the news about Evan and his shadow army, Damian started to move away from the center of the city, along with all the monsters that were gathered there. Their movements were completely unusual, and Evan was getting a bad feeling from it. If he was in perfect condition, he would have already jumped into the middle of the army to wipe them out. But in his current condition, he can't make any rash decision. He pondered for a moment, and after taking a look at what Damian was doing, he made up his mind. He tapped Ariel's head and asked it to fly towards the Lightning Horse. "Ignore the monster groups that come in the way for the time being and follow me." Evan sent a message to his shadow undeads, and all of them followed after him. Although he couldn't fight himself, his shadow undeads were not weaker than the monster army of Damian and Sonic Bat. There were around 100 shadow undeads, and all of them were at least A+ rank, and there were even 5S rank shadow undeads among them. "I will just stay away from them and let my shadow undeads handle the monsters for me," Evan said out loud, and continued to absorb monster bodies while flying. At first, he was thinking about meeting Nathan and other hunters, so that he could jointly attack Damian and the monster army with them. But looking at Damian's movement, Evan was feeling uneasy, and he wanted to finish him off before he could use any kind of trick. Let's hope my intuition is wrong and he is moving away because of fear. Around 20 minutes later, Evan noticed a base of hunters some distance away from him. Evan could feel Kazal's presence coming from the base, so he instantly understood this was the base where Sophie and Kalb were. He thought about going there for a moment, but after thinking about his title, he decided to just move towards Damian for the time being. Kazal also felt Evan's presence, but Evan sent him a message telling him to protect the base for now. Soon half an hour passed by, and Evan was about to catch up with Damian and Sonic Bat. There were 10s of A+ rank and 5S rank shadow undeads in his army, so it was impossible for Evan to hide their presence while moving, so Damian and Sonic Bat naturally felt them approaching. F***K, he is already here. Damian cursed out loudly and ordered the monsters to move faster. But soon they noticed another thing, and the faces of Damian and Sonic Bat turned pale white. What the F***ck is going on here? Sonic Bat asked in a voice full of disbelief. 4.N05 There are actually 5S rank monsters that are coming towards us, Damian said with his eyes wide open. Earlier, Sonic Bat told him that there was only one S rank monster in Evan's army, but now he was feeling the aura of 5S rank monsters. Bastard, don't you know how to count? Damian looked at Sonic Bat and said in an angry voice. But when I saw them Sonic Bat wanted to say something but no words came out of its mouth. It could not understand how the number of S rank monsters increased from 1 to 5. Damn it, we are still some distance away from the west gate. Damian ignored the Sonic Bat and increased his moving speed. But before they could move far away, 5 terrifying auras filled the surroundings. Damian and Sonic Bat looked behind them and saw 5 streaks of light rapidly coming in their direction, and all 5 of them were releasing the aura of S-rankers. Chapter 553, Gundam. A loud explosion shook the entire surroundings, and a dust cloud rose high in the sky as Stone Buffalo, Titan Elephant, Lightning Horse, Golden Lion and Volak landed on the ground. Soon Eclipse, Astronax, Necros and other shadow undeads also came flying and landed right behind them. When Damian and Sonic Bat noticed auras of the 5S rank and almost 100 A+100 monsters, their faces turned pale. But their shock soon turned into horror when the dust cloud settled down, and they finally saw the 5S rank monsters with their own eyes. How is this possible? Damian's eyes opened wide like saucers, and he subconsciously took a step back. Sonic Bat was the same, and it was also shocked beyond belief. That's the Golden Lion and the Lightning Horse, Damian said in a shaky voice, after seeing the shadow undeads of Golden Lion and Lightning Horse. Although the appearances of Golden Lion and Lightning Horse were completely different from before, Damian and Sonic Bat were easily able to recognize their auras, which was still the same. Evan maintained his distance from Damian and the monster army, and was 20 kilometers away from them. He was sitting at the back of Ariel, who was hovering 5,000 meters high in the sky. Although it was not easy for Evan to see everything clearly from such a long distance in his current condition, he was still able to see that there were at least 500,000 monsters with Damian and Sonic Bat. It won't be easy, Evan muttered in a low voice after seeing the numbers of the monsters. If he was fighting alongside his shadow undeads, he could have assisted them with his Death Ring skill, which is a nemesis of large groups. But since he is not going to fight alongside them, it will not be easy for his shadow undeads to fight against so many monsters, even though all of them are high rankers. I can summon back my shadow undeads, even if they get destroyed by the monster army. I just hope that the injury of my soul won't affect me while summoning them, Evan said, as he took out another B-rank body of a monster to absorb using energy devouring. After landing, the shadow undeads didn't care about the shock that Damian and the other monsters were feeling, and immediately charged towards them. F***k it, although I don't know what the hell is going on here. I refuse to believe that we can't defeat them with our current numbers, Damian said out loudly, and ordered the monster army to charge towards shadow undeads as well. Roar, rumble, roars of monsters filled the entire city, and the ground in hundreds of kilometers of area started to shake as the monster army of hundreds of thousands of monsters charged towards the small shadow army. As both armies charged forward, the 100 meters tall Titan Elephant, who didn't get any opportunity to fight after becoming shadow undead, was first to make its move. While running forward, its purple eyes blazed, and it opened its mouth wide and activated its skill Tremor Roar. Roar. Tremor roar. A deafening roar that can instill fear within your enemy and stun them if their spiritual power is not strong enough. Just as the Titan elephant used its skill, the ground in front of it collapsed because of the deafening roar, and most of the low-level monsters stopped moving forward and froze in fear. Just as the monsters stopped, the Titan elephant leapt into the sky and used another of its skill Gaia Slam. A large amount of mana burst forth from its body, and in the next second, the 100 meters tall body of Titan elephant crashed amid the monster army that was frozen because of the tremor roar skill. Boom! Rumble. An earth-shattering explosion shook the entire Naph City, and shockwaves strong enough to turn stones into dust swept in all directions. All the C-rank and below monsters who were caught in shockwaves instantly exploded into blood mist, and a large area turned crimson red because of blood mist. All the buildings within 20 kilometers of the area crumbled because of Titan Elephant's attack, and a crater that was over 200 meters deep and 5 kilometers wide in diameter formed there. It killed more than 10,000 monsters in an instant. Evan looked at the towering figure of Titan Elephant with a face full of amazement. Soon other shadow undeads and the monsters also clashed head-on. When the fight just started, the shadow undeads were able to kill a large number of monsters because of their powerful skills and high rank, but as the fight escalated, the monsters started to overwhelm them with their numbers. Evan's shadow undeads killed all the monsters that came near them, but while killing the monsters, they received many attacks launched by thousands of monsters. The entire Naph City was lit up by different kinds of colors as hundreds of thousands of monsters used their attack skills at the same time. Just 3 minutes after the fight started, Evan lost connection with one of his A+ rank shadow undead. In a few seconds, 3 more shadow undeads were killed. Evan took a deep breath and used his mana to summon back his dead shadow undeads. Just as he used his mana to summon back his shadow undeads, a piercing pain came from the depths of his soul, and he nearly cancelled the summoning in a midway. F***K this rotting title, Evan cursed while gritting his teeth and summoned back all the shadow undeads that died just now. After summoning them, he sent them back to the battlefield and absorbed more monsters' bodies to soothe his soul. The fight continued to proceed in the same manner, and Evan had to summon back at least 10 shadow undeads each minute. But after 20 minutes, Evan noticed the speed at which his shadow undeads were being killed decreased greatly. He was delighted by this because he was almost on the verge of crying after summoning back so many shadow undeads. But his joy did not last long, because he soon noticed another disadvantage of not being able to use his spiritual senses. Where are Damian and the Sonic Bat? Since he was not monitoring the battlefield with his spiritual senses, Damian and Sonic Bat ran away at some point. Chapter 554. What the fuck are those black monsters? I killed some of them, but they keep coming back like they are immortal, the Sonic Bat said in a voice full of disbelief while flying away. Damian also had a look of horror on his face, and he kept looking back while flying away. Don't let your guard down. The person who was controlling those monsters was not with them, so there is a very high possibility that he will come after us. The Sonic Bat's entire body shuddered when it heard Damian. Just remembering the scene where Evan was peeling off Golden Lion's skin made its heart sink. Are you sure that person can help us? It asks in a desperate voice after remembering what happened to Golden Lion. Do you have any better idea? Damian asked in an annoyed voice as he remembered the person they were headed towards. Sonic Bat was silent after hearing Damian, but after a moment, it spoke in a hesitant voice. Why don't we just run away from the city? Damian cursed inwardly when he heard Sonic Bat, because in his current situation, he can't even run away. I am already wanted by all the hunters, so where do you want me to run away? Damian shouted inwardly and continued to fly without replying to Sonic Bat. Because of the incident in Naph City, all the hunters already know that he is working with the Dark Guild, so it is impossible for him to go to the other cities after running away. The only place he can go to is the base of the Dark Guild, but if he decides to go there without completing the task that he received this time, he is not sure what they will do with him. Damn it. I have no choice but to hope that that person will be able to help us, Damian thought, and soon he and the Sonic Bat were just a few kilometers away from the West Gate. Just when they were about to reach there, Damian's communication crystal rang. He stopped flying and took out the crystal from his pocket. Where is the monster army that was with you? Just as he accepted the call, he heard a sweet and warm voice that made his blood boil in excitement. Damian surpassed the urge that he was feeling, and quickly told everything that happened earlier. "You can handle him, right?" Damian asked in a hopeful voice after recounting everything that had happened. Seeing the hopeful look on Damian's face, the Sonic Bat was speechless. Is this guy a moron? The Sonic Bat really wanted to ask this question. They just saw there were 5S rank and almost 100A plus rank monsters. On top of that, all of those monsters have a skill that can bring them back even if you kill them. In Sonic Bat's eyes, there was no way the person Damian was talking to could help them. But the Sonic Bat was shocked when it heard the reply of the person. "That's easy. I can help you get rid of him." Damian's eyes lit up when he heard this, but his expression fell when he heard the next words of the person. "But you will have to take responsibility for this, because if I help you get rid of him, I will not be able to handle the reinforcements of hunters that will reach here by tomorrow." Damian silently gritted his teeth when he heard the person, but soon he took a deep breath and nodded his head. "All right, I will handle the reinforcements that will be here by tomorrow. Just get rid of this damn bastard." "Good choice," the person who was on the other end of the crystal said in a delightful voice after hearing Damian. "Just bring that guy anywhere within 200 kilometers of the West Gate, and I'll take care of him." "What?" Both Damian and Sonic Bat were stunned when they heard this. "What do you mean by bringing him within 200 kilometers of the area of the West Gate?" Damian asked while raising his voice. "Are you a retarded? I told you guys to come here because I made preparations in this area to take care of the reinforcements that will come tomorrow. If you don't bring that guy into this area, how am I supposed to take care of him?" The person who was on the other end of the crystal said in a light voice. "Are you messing with us?" The Sonic Bat said in a shrill voice. "That guy has 5S rank and almost 100A plus rank monsters with him. How can we bring him here? We will be dead the moment we try to play with him." "Stupid Bat, it's not my problem," the person said. "If you want me to take care of that guy, then bring him here. If not, then you guys are on your own." Sonic Bat wanted to say something, but before it could speak, the call was cut off. "This bastard," the Sonic Bat cursed when it saw the call was cut off and looked at Damian. "What now?" Damian just stared at the communication crystal and did not reply to Sonic Bat. Just when the Sonic Bat was about to call him once again, he put away the crystal and took a deep breath. A look of resolution appeared on his face, and he took out 3 items from his storage ring. "I never thought I would have to waste these 3 precious artifacts because of a bastard who is not even half of my age," Damian muttered after taking out the items. 2 items were scrolls, and the 3rd item was a small broken compass. "These 3 items are..." When the Sonic Bat saw the items in Damian's hands, a confused expression appeared on its face. Damian raised his head and smiled coldly, while looking in the direction of the Shadow Army. "These 3 are the items that will lead us to victory." Chapter 555. Damn it, even though I told Volak and Lightning Horse to go after Damian and Sonic Bat after the battle started, they couldn't get to them because of these bastards who are jumping at my shadow undeads without caring about their lives, Evan said in a frustrated voice, after noticing Damian and Sonic Bat escaped, while he was focused on summoning back his shadow undeads. They were moving towards the West Gate earlier. "Should I go after them?" Evan thought, looking in the direction of the West Gate of the city. But after thinking about the current situation, he shook his head. "Instead of taking the risk by going after them, I should just focus on eliminating the monsters and stabilizing the situation in the city," Evan muttered, and once again summoned back 3 of his shadow undeads, who were killed by the monsters. Even without Damian and Sonic Bat, the monsters continued their attack and did not back away. "What the FU*K is going on here? Are all these monsters on drugs? They're attacking like crazy, even though their leaders have already escaped," Evan said in a speechless voice when the shadow undead of the Golden Lion was killed by the continued attacks of the monsters. He summoned back Golden Lion again, and the burden of summoning back an S-rank shadow undeads was far greater than summoning back A+ rank undeads. Time continues to elapse, and before long, an additional 2 hours have transpired. During these 2 hours, the army of nearly 500,000 monsters shrunk to 200,000. Without Evan's Death Ring skill that can easily take care of large groups of monsters, it was not easy for small numbers of shadow undeads to kill so many monsters. The battlefield was dyed red because of the blood, and the dead bodies of monsters were scattered everywhere. A cloud of red mist was forming in the center of the battlefield, and even though Evan was 20 kilometers away from the battlefield, he could still smell the smell of blood. At last, my shadow undeads are not dying like before. Evan sighed in relief when the death rate of his shadow undeads slowed down greatly. I used up 70% of my mana in the last 2 hours. Huh, Evan said while looking at his mana, and ordered Ariel to fly towards the battlefield. Among the remaining 200,000 monsters, most of them ranged from F rank to B rank. All the high-ranking monsters that were part of the army were already eliminated by his shadow undeads. After coming above the battlefield, Evan stretched out one of his fingers and activated the soul absorption skill. A small black dot formed at the tip of his finger, and all the soul orbs that were floating above dead bodies were absorbed by him. It would have been great if I could refine the energy of souls using the energy devouring skill, but alas. Currently, Evan had hundreds of thousands of souls, and other than increasing the power of his skills, he couldn't do anything with them. He tried to refine their energy using energy devouring skill, but it did not work. If Evan could refine the energy of the souls, it would have been a great help to him, since he had no use for so many souls for the time being. I should go and meet Nathan after clearing up the battlefield. He may have more information about Sonic Bat and Damian. 30 more minutes passed by, and the number of monsters reduced to 50,000. All 50,000 monsters were of low rank, so it was quite easy for his shadow undeads to handle them now. Volak. Now that the number of monsters reduced, Evan called back Volak. Master. Just as Evan called him, Volak appeared before him like a ghost. With his ghost-like appearance and horror movie type entry, he can definitely scare the sh*t out of any 5-year-old child, Evan thought inwardly, after seeing how Volak suddenly appeared in front of him. Go to West Gate and search for Damian and Sonic Bat. Evan was not willing to go after Damian and Sonic Bat, because he was afraid that it is a trap. But it didn't mean he was going to leave them alone. Even if it is a trap, he can still send his shadow undeads who are not afraid of any traps. After receiving Evan's order, Volak quickly left from there. As a shadow undead that was created by fusing the souls of an assassin-type hunter and shade stalker, the hiding and searching abilities of Volak were top-notch. Let's wait and see what these bastards of the Dark Guild are cooking this time, Evan muttered to himself as he watched Volak moving in the direction of the West Gate. While Volak was going towards the West Gate, Titan Elephant and other shadow undeads continued to clear out the remaining monsters. 20 minutes after Volak left, all the monsters were finally killed by his shadow undeads. Since his shadow undeads had unlimited stamina, he ordered them to clear the battlefield immediately, without giving them any break. While his shadow undeads were clearing the battlefield, Evan suddenly felt something and used his shadow senses to connect with Volak. When his vision connected with Volak, Evan was stunned because he saw Sonic Bat standing in front of him. But instead of attacking the Sonic Bat, Volak just stood at the same place, doing nothing. Evan felt something was wrong and tried to call Volak, but his expression fell when Volak did not respond to him. What is wrong with him? Evan tried to look around Volak to see if he could find anything, but other than Sonic Bat who was standing in front of Volak, Evan did not see anything strange. While Evan was trying to understand what happened to Volak, an invisible figure who was holding a broken compass was rapidly coming in his direction. Chapter 556. Volak. Evan tried to call Volak using shadow sensors, but Volak just stood in the same place without responding to him. What the hell is wrong with him? Evan furrowed his eyebrows when Volak didn't answer him. He tried to call him a few more times, but the result was the same. Is he being affected by some illusion skill? The way Volak stood in one place doing nothing led Evan to suspect that Volak was being affected by an illusion skill, but he was not sure about his guess, because he could not believe that an illusion skill could affect Volak to this extent. If a person's spiritual power is strong enough, they can easily break free from illusion skills. Volak's spiritual power is far greater than that of other S-rankers, because he was created using the soul fusion skill. So in Evan's eyes, with his current spiritual power, Volak should have easily been broken free from an illusion skill. While Evan was wondering what was wrong with Volak, Damian, who was completely invisible, stopped at some distance from him. He was holding a broken compass and a scroll in his hand, and the broken needle of the compass was pointing in Evan's direction. What kind of devil is this bastard? Damian felt a chill running down his spine when he looked at the monster's body, which turned into a dry husk after Evan absorbed its energy. He shook his head to clear his mind, and grabbed the scroll in his hand tightly. Switch scroll. You can switch your position with a marked person after activating this scroll. In the past, when Damian cleared an A-rank dungeon, he received 2 scrolls as a reward. One scroll was Mark Scroll, and the second scroll was Switch Scroll. Earlier, he used Mark Scroll on Sonic Bat, who is still flying above West Gate. After marking the Sonic Bat using the Mark Scroll, he used the compass he had taken out earlier to look for Evan. Compass of Vengeance broken. Show the picture of your enemies to the Compass of Vengeance, and it can help you search for their location. The current Compass of Vengeance is broken, and many of its abilities are sealed. Because of the broken condition, you can use Compass of Vengeance only 2 more times. Now I just need to use this scroll on him and switch his position with Sonic Bat. Damian thought and took a deep breath. His entire body was drenched in cold sweat because he knew that if he failed here, he would surely be doomed. He surpassed the fear he was feeling because of so many shadow undeads, and activated the switch scroll by infusing a little bit of his mana into it. Just as he infused his mana into the scroll, his invisibility disappeared, and he appeared 10 meters behind Evan. The moment Damian activated the switch scroll by infusing his mana, Evan reacted and looked behind him. Although he was not able to sense Damian earlier because his soul was damaged, Evan's sensitivity towards mana was still very high, because of eating mana affinity fruit in the past. So the moment Damian activated the switch scroll, Evan was able to sense him. Damian was shocked when he saw Evan react so quickly, and hurriedly threw the switch scroll towards him. Damian was just 10 meters away from him, so the scroll arrived in front of Evan in an instant. Evan tried to move away using his Windwalk skill when he saw the scroll coming towards him, but he was not able to activate the skill on time because of his injured soul. F***K Evan cursed inwardly, and before he could do anything else, the energy coming out from the scroll engulfed him, and he disappeared from the back of Ariel. Shriek. Ariel shrieked in an angry voice when Evan disappeared from its back and tried to attack Damian. But before it could attack Damian, the space above it disordered, and the giant figure of the Sonic Bat appeared there. Did you suck after arriving there? Sonic Bat immediately looked at Damian because it wanted to ask if he succeeded in sending away Evan. But before it could ask anything, killing intent filled the entire surroundings. The Sonic Bat felt a chill running down its spine, and quickly looked towards the ground. When it looked towards the ground, the Sonic Bat saw all of Evan's shadow undeads that were present there were looking at it, and Damian with murderous eyes. Idiot, if you don't want to die, use the escape scroll. The Sonic Bat heard Damian's desperate voice, and saw him crushing an escape scroll with a pale face. This bastard. The Sonic Bat was stunned when it saw Damian already escaped, and it also used an escape scroll to save its life. Roar. The angry roars of shadow undeads filled the Naph City when Damian and Sonic Bat escaped, but all of them soon looked in the direction of the West Gate because they could feel Evan's presence from there. Without cleaning the battlefield, all of his shadow undeads rushed towards the West Gate. Upon being teleported away by the switch scroll, Evan found himself standing in front of Volak. Evan raised an eyebrow when he saw he was standing in front of Volak. He was about to scout his surroundings when suddenly the world around him started to turn white. The buildings of the city, Volak, and everything that was around him disappeared. What the hell is going on here? Evan raised his guard to the maximum and looked around cautiously. But suddenly he noticed something, and his face turned pale. Why are there cracks on my body? From chest to stomach, Evan's body was full of cracks as if it would break apart at any moment. So you are finally here. Just when Evan was panicking because of his strange situation, he heard a sweet voice coming from behind him. When he heard the sweet voice, Evan felt goosebumps rising all over his body. He jumped away from the place he was standing and quickly looked behind him. When he looked behind him, only one sentence came out of his mouth. I know it was a trap. Chapter 557. When Evan turned around after hearing the voice, he saw a girl hovering at some distance from him. The girl had 2 rainbow-colored wings on her back, and a beautiful face that could mesmerize anyone. Evan was stunned after seeing such a beautiful face, and felt a bubbling feeling in his heart. But the next second, he felt a sudden chill running down his spine, and came back to his senses. After coming back to senses when he looked at the girl carefully, he finally understood why he felt the sudden cold earlier. It's you, the trap character. The person with the rainbow wings and the beautiful face was none other than Noah. Trap character. When Noah heard Evan, he tilted his head in a cute manner. This bastard. Evan wanted to slap Noah for acting all cute in front of him, but he held himself because he wanted to understand his situation first. He took a few deep breaths to calm down, and asked the question that was bothering him. What is this place? Hey, we didn't get a chance to talk when we saw each other during the tournament. And now that we got a chance to talk, you're asking such a useless question. Noah pouted and said in a sad voice. Evan raised an eyebrow when he heard Noah because he could not understand what this guy was trying to achieve by behaving like this. After analyzing a few things in this short time, Evan was sure about a few things. First, Noah was definitely an S-ranker, and the only way he could become an S-ranker in such a short period of time was, just like Amara, he merged himself with an S-rank monster. Although Evan was not sure what kind of monster Noah used to merge himself with, he could tell that it was not a normal monster. He may have merged himself with a monster, which is compatible with his strange dream beauty physique, Evan thought inwardly while looking at rainbow-like wings of Noah. The second thing which he was certain of was that in this white world, he and Noah did not exist with their physical bodies. Many things led him to this conclusion, but the main thing was the cracks that stretched from his chest to his stomach. He was sure that these cracks were the injuries of his soul, because he could feel the familiar pain coming from those cracks. If this is really a place where I have to fight in my soul form, then I am really fu****. Evan cursed inwardly, and tried to summon his shadow undeads. But just as he had expected, he was not able to summon them. And it was just one of the things because soon he realized that he couldn't even use his other skills. He tried to activate the ice chain, temporal velocity and some other skills, but nothing worked. Are you done? Suddenly Evan heard Noah's voice and saw him looking over at him with a smile on his face. You should stop wasting your time because you can't use your skills here. Evan stopped trying to use his skills and asked Noah coldly, what is this place? That's a good question! But Noah stopped smiling and came down from the sky. Why should I tell you anything about this place? Evan's expressions didn't change when he heard Noah, but inwardly he was cursing his entire family. What kind of villain is this guy? In such a situation, shouldn't he boast about his skills and tell me what kind of place this is? By the way, you are not alone here, suddenly Noah said and waved his hand. Just as he waved his hand, a transparent blue cube appeared in front of him. When Evan saw what was inside the blue cube, he narrowed his eyes. Volak. Volak was chained inside the transparent cube. I've never seen a monster like this. It looks very similar to the Shade Stalker, but there are still some differences. Can you tell me more about this monster? Noah said while looking at Volak with great interest on his face. Even Volak is in his soul form. Looking at Volak, who was also in his soul form, Evan suddenly thought about something. We are in a dream, right? Hearing Evan's words, Noah stopped looking at Volak and looked at him with a surprised expression. At first, Evan was not sure about his guess, and only said this because of the name of Noah's physique. But after seeing the surprised expression on his face, Evan knew he was right. I'm surprised you were able to guess it! But Noah said and waved his hand. Just as he waved his hand, the white world started to change. You are not entirely correct. Trees started growing everywhere, and the entire land was covered with grass. Tall mountains reaching the clouds came out of the ground, and rivers started flowing down from them. Evan was shocked to see such a scene, and was not able to say anything. We are not in a dream, but in a different dimension called a dream realm. Evan looked at everything in amazement and took a deep breath. Only one question came into his mind after hearing Noah. Dream realm. Is this place something similar to the Shadow Realm? I am the master of this world and control everything here, so the moment you came into this world, you lost control over your life. Noah ignored Evan's shocked expression and tapped one foot on the ground. As soon as he tapped the ground, rumble, the ground started to shake. Although I can feel that you are very powerful and I can't fight against you if we fight in the outside world. Boom. The ground behind Noah was split open. But in this world, things are completely different because I am the god here. A giant snake that was over 200 meters tall and releasing an aura even stronger than S rank came out from the ground and stood behind Noah. Here, I can summon monsters that are even stronger than S rankers and give them any ability that I want. Noah snapped his finger and the snake was covered in fire. He snapped his finger a second time and the fire snake turned into an ice snake. Whether it's fire or ice, I can control everything here. So Noah said and smiled charmingly towards Evan. It doesn't matter even if you find out where you are because you're still going to die here. Chapter 558. Whoosh. Damn it, Evan jumped aside and barely dodged a wind blade that was tens of meters long. Hiss dash. The giant snake that was 200 meters long hissed loudly seeing Evan dodge the wind blade and chased after him. Come on, there's got to be something I can use. While avoiding the attacks of the giant snake, Evan was trying to use his skills one by one, hoping that something would work. You know, instead of being a hunter, you should have become a circus clown because you're so much fun to watch, Noah said loudly while munching on popcorn. He was standing in front of the blue cube in which Volak was chained, and was watching everything with a smile on his face. Evan ignored the mocking words of Noah and continued to dodge the attacks of the giant snake. Hiss! Suddenly the snake hissed out loudly and opened its mouth. Just as it opened its mouth, a red sphere started to form into its mouth. Evan felt the temperature around him start rising and looked behind him. Not this sh*t again, he cursed out loudly and increased his running speed. Soon the red sphere reached 30 centimeters in diameter. Just as it reached 30 centimeters in diameter, the snake hissed once again and shot it towards Evan. Evan felt a fatal danger coming from behind him and immediately gathered all of his strength in his legs. He pressed his feet to the ground and with all his might jumped away from his position. Just as he jumped away, boom! The red fire sphere shot by giant snake exploded at the place he was a moment ago. Arg! A painful grunt escaped from Evan's mouth and his back was scorched black. The shockwaves of the explosion hit him hard, and he was sent flying away. The pain coming from his soul increased even more, and it became hard for him to stay focused. Although the process was slow, Evan could feel that the cracks that were present in his soul were slowly enlarging, each time he got hit by an attack. Hiss! The snake didn't give Evan any chance to rest, and immediately crawled towards him after he was blasted away. Give me a break, you crazy bastard, Evan cursed out loudly seeing the snake was coming towards him with its maw wide open. He stood up with difficulty and once again started to run away with his shaky legs. Man, this is getting boring. I thought you'd give me a chance to use my full power, since everyone was talking about how powerful you were, but honestly, Noah said and shook his head. Finish him quickly. I don't want to waste any more time here. Hiss dash. Hearing Noah, the snake hissed loudly and its yellow eyes turned red. Evan felt the aura of the snake start to increase, and his expression changed. He was still trying to use his skills one by one, and one of his skills finally worked. But this skill was completely useless in his current situation. What the hell am I supposed to do with my shadow senses skill? Tell my shadow undeads that I'm going to die. Evan cursed under his breath when the skill that worked was shadow senses. Suddenly the ground beneath his feet started to shake. Without giving it a second thought, Evan immediately jumped away from his position, changing his running direction. Just as he jumped away, sharp earth spikes came out from the place he was a moment ago. He looked behind him and saw the giant snake was closing in rapidly. Although Evan was in his soul form, he started to sweat because he knew the situation was getting completely out of control. If it wasn't for this King Dream Realm. Evan dodged one more attack of the giant snake and tried to think of something that he could use here. Wait, suddenly something clicked in Evan's mind and he looked around him. If this is a different dimension then. He used his shadow senses and contacted Gobu, who was still in the dungeon of Astrate City. After contacting him, Evan immediately asked him to share his Eyes of the Abyss innate ability with him. When Gobu heard Evan's order, he stopped sharing his Eyes of the Abyss ability with Alyria and shared it with Evan through their connection. Because Eyes of the Abyss was an innate ability, Evan was able to use it, even though he was in Dream Realm. His eyes started to spin like empty voids, and suddenly the world around him changed once again. This underscored when Evan looked at the Dream Realm using Eyes of the Abyss. He was completely stunned. Grassland, mountains, trees, rivers. Everything around him once again disappeared. With Eyes of the Abyss, now he was seeing a small area of around 5 kilometers. That was filled with a strange kind of energy. Apart from this small area, the entire world was pure white. Swish. While Evan was still observing the world around him, the snake he was chasing after him used its long tail and whipped at him. F***K Evan was stunned because of seeing such a strange world after using Eyes of the Abyss, so he was not able to dodge the attack, and was blasted away by the tail attack. While in mid-air, Evan noticed some strings were attached to his body that he couldn't see earlier. But these strings became visible because of Eyes of the Abyss. When Evan followed those strings, he saw they were coming out from Noah's body. At the same time, he noticed a small orb spinning above the transparent blue cube, in which Volak was chained. The small orb was continuously releasing the strange energy that was filling the 5 kilometers of the area around him. Thump. With a loud thump, Evan fell down from the sky. Although his soul was further damaged by Snake's attack, Evan did not care about it, and stood up with shaky legs. God of this world, my ass. Evan muttered in a low voice and covered his right hand with his spiritual power. This F***er is nothing more than a tenant here. The cracks in Evan's soul caused sharp pain when he used the spiritual power directly. But he did not care about it, and used his hand, which was covered in spiritual power, to cut the strings that were connected to his body. Swish. With just a single slash, all the strings connected to his body were cut off. The moment all the strings were cut off, Evan felt a restriction had been lifted from him. Noah was stunned when Evan cut off all the strings that were attached to his body, and his eyes opened wide. Even after the strings were cut off, Evan knew he couldn't use any of his skills. But he did not care because he already knew what he could do now that those strings were cut off. Carnage, he said, and his spiritual power surged. Arg, he cried out in pain as he felt the cracks in his soul enlarging, because of using his spiritual power. But as he used more of his spiritual power, carnage started to materialize in his hand. Chapter 559. Evan dropped to his knees and panting heavily. His entire body was drenched in cold sweat, and the pain that was coming from his soul was simply insane. Even using his normal skills was difficult for him because of his injured soul. But just now, he directly used the spiritual power of his soul. The burden of using his spiritual power with his damaged soul was far greater than using his normal skills. Quickly, kill him, Noah shouted in an urgent voice after seeing Evan materializing carnage using his spiritual power. Hiss dash. Hearing Noah's command, the giant snake hissed loudly and jumped toward Evan with its maw wide open. A fire sphere started to form into its open maw, and the temperature of the surroundings suddenly increased. Evan looked up with a pale face because of the pain, but even though his face was pale, he still had a wide smile on his face. Stop hissing UMOTHERFU*, Evan roared out loudly, and a bullet materialized in his left hand. Blood lightning was cracking around the bullet, and it was releasing a menacing aura. He pointed the carnage towards the giant snake who was still in mid-air after jumping towards him and loaded the bullet. Just as he loaded the bullet, blood lightning started to spin around the muzzle of the carnage, creating a bullet with blood lightning properties, put an even greater burden on his soul. But Evan completely ignored it. The sphere of fire in the snake's mouth reached 50 centimeters in diameter in an instant, and it was about to shoot it, when Evan pressed the trigger of carnage. Just as he pressed the trigger, crackle, bang, a bullet covered in blood lightning went towards the open maw of the giant snake. Before the snake could react, the bullet pierced the fire sphere that was spinning in its mouth, and moved further inside its body. Crackle! The blood lighting reacted the moment it came into contact with the fire sphere, and boom! The fire sphere exploded inside the mouth of giant snake. The bullet that went inside the snake also reacted and destroyed its body from the inside. Thump! With a loud thumping sound, the giant snake dropped in front of Evan, after getting struck by the blood lightning bullet. The snake was now missing the upper part of its body, and it was slowly disappearing. Arg! Noah cried out in pain the moment the giant snake was destroyed and dropped to his knees. His face turned pale, and it became difficult for him to breathe. Evan was not surprised when he heard Noah's painful cry. The snake was made of Noah's spiritual power, so it was normal for him to receive a backlash after it was destroyed. He wanted to take advantage of the situation while Noah was still out, so he gritted his teeth and created another blood lightning bullet. The moment he used spiritual power to create another bullet, cracks on his soul enlarged, and the damage to it increased to 10%. 10% soul damage means that he was basically 10% dead. The moment his soul damage reached 10%, Evan felt the world around him start to turn white, and it became hard for him to focus on anything. He slapped himself to shake off the dizziness he was feeling, and loaded the blood lightning bullet. He used Eyes of the Abyss, and aimed the carnage at the core of Dream Realm that was spinning right above the blue cube in which Volak was chained. Damn, Evan felt frustrated because he was not able to aim, probably due to the damage to his soul. But after a few seconds, he finally adjusted carnage properly and pressed the trigger. Bang! Noah was still on his knees in front of the blue cube when he heard the sound of another bullet being fired. He thought it was coming towards him, but when he saw the streak of blood lightning going towards the core of Dream Realm, that should have been inviable, his face turned red from anger. "Don't mess with me, you bastard," he roared out loud in anger, and his spiritual power surged outwards. A powerful pressure filled the entire Dream Realm, and the bullet that was about to hit the core was instantly destroyed. F***K. Evan's face turned pale because this time he received a backlash when the bullet made from his spiritual power was destroyed. "How dare you try to destroy my world?" Noah's spiritual power continued to increase, and Evan felt a suffocating pressure engulfing the surroundings. He used some of his spiritual power and covered himself with it. But even after covering himself with spiritual power, Evan was still feeling the pressure that Noah was releasing. "I am the god of this world. You should have died obediently when I gave you the chance earlier. How dare you go against me in my own world?" Noah roared loudly, and tens of strings that were attached to Evan earlier once again shot out from his body. These strings once again, Evan dodged all the strings that Noah shot toward him and tried to think of something. Just by feeling the pressure that Noah was releasing, he could tell his spiritual power was currently far greater than him. It seems like this world is increasing his power, so that he can control everything here. Evan gritted his teeth and used more spiritual power to dodge the strings. "You are a puppet that existed for my entertainment, so stop running around already." Suddenly all the strings that Noah shot toward him started to move like snakes, and it became hard for Evan to dodge them. "Damn, only if my soul was not damaged." Evan started to lose focus because using spiritual energy was not easy for him in his current condition. "I need to do something." Suddenly Evan thought about something and stopped dodging. "You are finally done, you bastard," Noah shouted in an excited voice, seeing Evan stop moving and thought he had given up. The tens of strings immediately went toward him, and were about to attach themselves to him. But just as they were about to attach themselves to him, Evan muttered something in a low voice. Just as he muttered, bang, the transparent blue cube that was behind Noah exploded. Chapter 560. When Evan used the Eyes of the Abyss and saw the small area that was filled with the strange energy, he did not understand what that small area was, or what the strange energy was that was filling the area. But when he was blasted into the air because of the giant serpent's tail attack, he finally understood a few things. He already knew that Noah had used his spiritual power to summon the giant serpent. In fact, after seeing how Noah summoned the giant serpent, he also tried to summon or create something using his spiritual power. But other than covering his body with his spiritual power, he was not able to do anything. He did not know why he was not able to summon or create things like Noah using his spiritual power. But he was certain about one thing. Each time he tried to summon or create something using his spiritual power, he could feel that he was missing something. And after seeing the strange energy that was filling the small area, he finally understood what he was missing. With the help of Eyes of the Abyss, Evan noticed that other than the spiritual power, Noah was using the strange energy as well, that was filling the area. The giant serpent was made from the combination of his spiritual power and the strange energy that was filling the area. And unlike Noah, who was able to freely transform his spiritual power from strange energy, Evan was not able to do so. The reason for this was the strings that were coming out from Noah's body and were attached to him. Those strings were restricting him from using the energy that was filling that small area. Each time he tried to summon or create something, those strings would absorb the strange energy that was around him and would send it to Noah. After seeing all of these things, it was not hard for Evan to figure out a few things about the dream realm. First, the small area that was filled with the strange energy was the only place that was under Noah's control. The reason for this was because outside of this small area, Evan couldn't see the strange energy. And without this strange energy, Noah wouldn't be able to do anything here, just like how Evan was not able to do anything till now. After learning that Noah can only control this small area, Evan thought about escaping from there. But after considering a few things, he realized that escaping from that small area might be even more dangerous. Although Noah was just boasting that he could control the entire dream realm, the fact that it was a different dimension was still true, and escaping from that area without knowing about the dimension was just foolishness. What would happen if he escaped from that area and lost his way? Wouldn't he be stuck here forever? What if there are other powerful dimensional creatures lurking outside? If he had decided to leave that area, there were many uncertain things that could have ended his life. So the only thing that he could think of was to escape from Dream Realm without leaving that area. And that's when he noticed the small orb that was spinning above the cube in which Volak was chained. The cube was just 10 centimeters in diameter and was continuously releasing the energy that was filling the small area. Because of the ability of Eyes of the Abyss that helps him perceive hidden truth and magical aura, Evan came to know that the orb was actually the core of the area that was under Noah's control. And if he successfully destroys that core, he can escape from this dream realm. That's why he created Carnage after destroying the strings that were attached to him, because it was the only weapon that could destroy the core from a distance. Unfortunately, things did not go according to his plans. Although he knew for some reason Noah's spiritual power was off the charts in this dream dimension, he did not expect it to be so high. Just by releasing his spiritual power to its maximum limit, he destroyed the bullet that he had shot towards the core. Damn, it seems like his dream beauty physique is the reason why his spiritual power is so high in this realm, Evan cursed, while dodging the strings that were coming towards him. As he was in the pinch, Evan suddenly thought about his shadow sense skill that he was able to use earlier. I was able to use the shadow sense skill because it did not require me to use mana. Since this is the case, Evan thought and stopped dodging the strings that were coming towards him. When he stopped moving, the strings that Noah shot surrounded him from all sides. Evan completely ignored the strings that were coming towards him and looked at Volak, who was chained inside the transparent blue cube. Shadow Possession. Just like Shadow Sense, he doesn't need mana to use the Shadow Possession skill. The only thing that he needed was a shadow undead that he could use to merge with himself. So the moment he used the Shadow Possession skill, bang, Volak turned into black smoke and the blue cube exploded. Noah was startled when the cube exploded because he was standing right in front of it. He was about to turn around to look at the cube when he saw a mass of black smoke rushing toward Evan. Before he could understand what was the black smoke, it arrived in front of Evan and went inside his body. Swish! The strings that Noah shot also reached in front of Evan and attached themselves to him. Noah was confused about the black smoke, but a grin appeared on his face when he saw the strings were once again attached to Evan. Now you are done for. These strings are far stronger than B underscore. Boom. Noah wanted to mock Evan, but his words struck inside his mouth when a terrifying spiritual aura erupted from Evan's body. Noah took a step back because of the powerful aura that Evan was releasing, and watched with his eyes wide open as Evan's appearance started to change. His black hair turned white and reached his waist length. His height increased to 3 meters, and his body became very lean, almost looking like a skeleton. His skin turned pale and ashen, and his hands turned into long claws. Evan's face was covered by his long white hair, so Noah was not able to see his eyes, but just by looking at his ghost-like appearance, Noah felt a chill running down his spine. As long as I don't overdo it, I should be able to handle him without causing further damage to my soul, Evan thought after feeling his current spiritual power, and slashed with his claw-like hands. Swish! With a single slash, all the strings that were attached to his body were cut off. Noah was shocked to see that Evan destroyed the strings easily, because he made them far stronger than before. While Noah was still in shock, Evan used his claws to brush aside his white hair, revealing his pale yellow eyes. When Noah looked into those pale yellow eyes that were spinning like swirling voids, he felt a chill running down his spine. His instincts were telling him to do something quickly or everything would be over. After merging himself with a monster, Noah's instincts were far stronger than before, so he fully trusted them. Without any hesitation, he used a large amount of his spiritual power. Just as he used a large amount of his spiritual power, rumble, the dream realm started to shake in the next second. Roars of monsters reverted throughout the dream realm, as more than 20 monsters who were releasing the aura of S-rank monsters appeared in front of Noah. Evan looked at everything without any expression on his face, but soon a wide grin appeared on his pale face. He closed his eyes and let his Otaku imagination run wild. Bang! His power burst outwards, and Evan lost more than 50% of his spiritual power in an instant. Rumble. The dream realm once again shook, and the next second, a giant Gundam appeared behind Evan. "Let the fight begin," Evan said, and teleported inside the cockpit of the giant robot. Chapter 561. Boom. Bang. Ha 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 ha. What a laughter that was full of madness echoed throughout the dream realm. Several monsters were obliterated as powerful laser beams rained down from the sky. Noah looked at the giant robot that was in the sky with a blank look on his face. He was feeling suffocated, and his soul was screaming in pain, because the monsters that he created using his spiritual power were being destroyed by the giant robot. But the shock that he was feeling was even greater than the pain that was coming from his soul, so he didn't even flinch from his position even though his soul was screaming. "What the F***K is wrong with this bastard?" Noah muttered with a blank look on his face. "Come MOTHERFU*, won't you calling yourself the god of this world? Then go ahead and make something that can stand against me for at least 5 seconds. Evan roared from inside the cockpit of the Gundam, and fired a few more laser beams to obliterate the ground. Rumble. Explosions filled the dream realm, and the ground started to shake. Roar. A monster that looked similar to a Komodo dragon roared at the giant robot, and released a fireball. Evan laughed seeing the fireball coming towards him. He moved the joysticks in his controller, and evaded the monster's attack with ease. He launched laser blasters at the Komodo dragon, and dived towards other monsters, while taking out his laser sabers. The monster group tried to move away seeing the Gundam was coming towards them, but before they could move away, the giant robot's rocket boosters that were located on its back activated. Boom! A sonic boom resounded in the sky, and Gundam appeared in the middle of a monster group in an instant. Spin Cutter Evan roared inside the cockpit, and the giant robot started to spin, while holding its 2 laser sabers. A serpent who was covered in dragon-like scales was just 2 meters away from the Gundam when it started to spin. So the moment it started to spin, and the laser sabers came into contact with the serpent's body, swish! Its body was cut off into 2 pieces. But Evan didn't stop there and used the controller to move the Gundam in the middle of the monster group, while it was still spinning. Swish! Sharp saber lights flashed everywhere, and heads of monsters flew into the sky. Seeing the situation was going completely out of his hands, Noah held back the pain that he was feeling, and summoned more monsters. But instead of summoning random monsters, this time he summoned monsters with practical use. In front of the army, there were earth bears, rock golems, and some other monsters with high defense. At the back of those monsters, there were monsters with high attack powers like lightning wolves, fire lions, and many more. Other than these monsters, he summoned many aerial-type monsters as well. "Kill that bastard," Noah shouted after summoning them, and all the monsters launched their attacks. The rock golems and earth bears used their earth abilities to restrict Evan's movements, and lightning wolves and other monsters launched their elemental attacks at him. All aerial monsters also made their move and launched different kinds of attacks at him. In an instant, Evan saw tens of powerful attacks coming towards him, and he couldn't move because the Gundam was bound at the same place because of the skills of Earth Bear and Rock Golem. All the attacks that were coming towards him were far stronger than the attacks launched by normal S-rank monsters. But instead of feeling afraid after seeing the attacks, Evan just sneered. He pressed one of the buttons of the controller, and missile launches came out from the back of Gundam. Missile launch. Evan said out loudly and shot tens of missiles at the attacks that were coming towards him. Boom, boom, boom. Fire and explosions engulfed the dream realm, and surroundings shook. All the attacks that were coming towards Evan were obliterated by the missiles, and smoke covered the large patch of the area. Noah's mouth was wide open, and he took a step back because of fear. He couldn't understand what the F***K was going on here. Amid the smoke-filled area, suddenly two red eyes lit up. When Noah saw those two red eyes shining amid the smoke, all the hairs on his body stood up to no end. The two red eyes suddenly looked towards the sky, and the next second, swish, two beams of red light erupted from the smoke-filled area and went towards the aerial monsters that were flying high in the sky. The laser beams were lightning fast, so they reached the sky in an instant and sliced all the monsters that were flying in the sky without any resistance. Arg! Noah cried out in pain when all the aerial monsters that he created were sliced apart in an instant. Bang! Another booming sound echoed out, and all the smoke that was covering the area was blown away. Just as the smoke was blown away, the rocket boosters behind the Gundam activated and it appeared high in the sky. Earth bears, golems, lightning wolves and other monsters tried to attack the Gundam, but Evan controlled the joystick and easily evaded their attacks without any problem. Let's end this, Evan muttered and pressed a skeleton-shaped button on the control panel. Just as he pressed the button, a light blue energy ball started to materialize in the open palm of the giant robot. Energy Nova, he said, and dropped the energy ball towards the ground. The ball reached the ground in an instant, and boom! An explosion shook the entire dream realm, and blinding light covered everything. Noah was forced to close his eyes because of the intense light, and at the same time felt something was tearing apart his soul. The intense light did not last long and disappeared after a few seconds. When the blinding light receded, all the monsters disappeared, leaving behind a completely obliterated area. Noah was already on his knees and was panting heavily. His face was pale white, and his spiritual aura became very weak. The giant robot landed a few meters away from Noah. The cockpit of the robot opened, revealing the ghost-like figure of Evan, who had a creepy smile on his pale face. Or summon a few more monsters. I still have 1 minute and 40 seconds left. Chapter 562. Or summon a few more monsters. I still have 1 minute and 40 seconds left. When Noah heard Evan's words, he nearly lost consciousness because of anger. He was feeling humiliated because he could tell that Evan was having a lot of fun obliterating the monsters that he had summoned. How is this possible? I am the god of this world. How can I lose to this bastard? Noah's mental state began to deteriorate, and his aura became chaotic. No, I can't lose here. Yes, that's right. I am the true god of underscore. Bang. Stop calling yourself a god, you need. You are nothing but a trap character who is suffering from 8th grade syndrome. Evan smashed Noah's head to the ground and said with a sneer on his face, You how dare you talk to me like that? You are nothing but an insect who is still alive because I showed you kindness earlier. If you underscore, bang, I am telling you to s underscore, bang, you will regret th underscore, bang. Evan continued to punch Noah using the Gundam, and shot some laser beams at him, damaging his soul more and more. Rumble. The small core of the dream realm that was spinning behind Noah started to shake, and cracks appeared all over it, because Noah was not able to sustain it anymore. Bang! Evan shot a missile at Noah, blasting him away. Thump! Noah's body crashed 200 meters away from him, and the chaotic aura around him intensified. I can't lose. This is my world. I am the god here. How can I lose against this pest? It must be an illusion. Yes, this underscore. No, stupid, it is not an illusion. It is a dream. Suddenly Evan appeared behind Noah and whispered in his ear. Hearing Evan's ghost-like voice, Noah felt a chill running down his spine. He wanted to look behind him, but before he could look behind him, swish! A sharp light flashed, and Evan's claw, which was covered in his spiritual power, pierced Noah's soul. Arg! Noah screamed in pain and wanted to back away. But before he could back away, rip! A ripping sound echoed out, and Evan ripped apart a small portion of Noah's soul. Arg! A soul-shuddering scream came out from Noah's mouth, and the dream realm started to collapse. Evan looked at the dream realm with his light yellow eyes, that were spinning like swirling voids, and noticed the boundaries of dimension were shattering. If I want to kill him here, I would need to injure at least 25% of his soul. But with my remaining spiritual power, Evan muttered, looking at the low level of his spiritual power. His current spiritual power was very low after launching so many attacks, and if he used more of his spiritual power, the burden on his soul would definitely increase, and his soul would be further damaged. I may not be able to kill you here, but, Evan said, looking at Noah who was rolling on the ground because of pain and stretched out his sharp claws. I will make sure that you will never be able to bother me again. His claws shined with his remaining spiritual power, and he pierced Noah's soul with both of his hands. No, stop. Why you can't do this to me? Evan ignored Noah's painful cry, and ripped off 2 more parts of his soul with both of his claws. Egg. Rumble. A heart-wrenching scream rang out throughout the dream realm, and it started to shake. Using the eyes of the abyss, Evan saw the boundaries of the dream realm were collapsing, and the small area that was under Noah's control was turning white once again. Just what kind of place is this dream realm? Evan thought in wonder, looking at the collapsing boundaries. Although Evan was not sure, he was guessing that the strange energy that was filling the small area was something similar to shadow energy. I will turn this guy into a shadow undead, and will come back here once again to see what kind of secret this place is hiding, Evan said to himself and looked at Noah, whose soul already started to disappear from the dream realm. Soon Evan's soul also started to disappear, and his vision turned blurry. While he was disappearing from the dream realm, the duration of the shadow possession skill also ended. Evan felt a gut-wrenching pain the moment the duration of the shadow possession ended, and almost dropped to his knees. The injury of my soul is no joke, Evan said while taking deep breaths. Roar. Rumble. Just as Evan was about to disappear from the dream realm, he heard a loud roar that shook the core of his soul. With his blurry vision, Evan looked in the direction of the roar, and saw a whale-like monster that was thousands of meters long coming toward him. Even though he couldn't see properly because he was about to disappear from the dream realm, Evan could tell that the power of the whale-like monster was simply off the charts. He was sure that even in his best condition, he would not last even for 1 second against this monster. A suffocating pressure engulfed Evan's soul. When the monster started to come towards him, Evan felt his soul was about to shatter, just by coming into contact with the powerful aura that the whale was releasing. Whoosh! Just when Evan was on his wits' ends, the core that was under Noah's control fully shattered, and he disappeared from the dream realm. Huff! Huff! Evan opened his eyes to the real world and dropped to his knees while panting heavily. All of his shadow undeads were already present there and were standing near him. Before Evan could even think about the monster that he had just seen in the dream realm, his vision started to turn black. Kill anyone who tries to approach me while I'm out. Using all of his willpower, Evan gave one last command to his shadow undeads and lost consciousness. Just as he lost consciousness, the shadow energy in his monarch core moved and covered his entire body into a cocoon-like shape. Chapter 563. Author's note. Remember Chapter 366. Before reading this chapter, here, try this, Anastasia said, handing a bowl of soup to a man. The man took the bowl, and his eyes lit up slightly as he smelled the spicy aroma coming from the soup. He stirred the soup with the spoon and finally drank it. So, what do you think? Anastasia asked in a prideful voice after seeing the satisfied expression on the man's face. It's good. Of course it's good. I was bored so I learned cooking techniques for 500 years, Anastasia said with a smirk on her face, and drank a large mouthful of soup from another bowl. You learned cooking for 500 years. Doesn't it mean you are? Yes, I am one of the best chefs in this enter underscore. Doesn't it mean you are an old hag? PFFF. What? Anastasia spat out the soup she was drinking and looked at the man with her eyes wide open. Am I wrong? The man asked with a confused expression on his face, seeing Anastasia's shocked look. Yeah, I mean. Anastasia was lost for words and didn't know what to say. She took a deep breath to calm down and organized her thoughts properly before speaking. Look, I am a dragon, and even among dragons, I am very special. Dragons can easily live for thousands of years, so you can't call me old just because I learned cooking for 500 years. Do you understand? Anastasia asked in a serious voice. Oh, the man nodded his head and scooped another spoonful of soup into his mouth. So you mean you're a young dragon who is a few thousand years old, right? Well, there is no need to say a few thousand years old, Anastasia muttered to herself in a low voice. The man heard Anastasia's grumbling, but he ignored it completely. You still can't get rid of the poison, the man asked after he finished the soup. The poison is more powerful than I initially thought. It will still take a few months for me to completely detoxify it, Anastasia replied while sighing loudly. Looks like I'm not going to get any peace for the next few months then, the man said and stood up. What do you underscore? Hey, how long do you intend to keep following us? The man looked in the distance after standing up and said in an indifferent voice. Hearing the man's words, Anastasia's expression changed and she also stood up. Is there really someone? Even though I lost most of my power because of poison ish underscore. Interesting. To think that someone as weak as you would be able to detect me. Anastasia was still thinking when a slightly cold voice rang out. This voice. Anastasia's eyes opened wide when she heard the voice, and a shocked look appeared on her face. The next second, the space some distance away from her and the man twisted and a woman appeared there. The woman was wearing golden armor and had long brown hair. Her eyes were light green with snake pupils, and she had dark brown skin. There was a black spear in her hand, and a cold aura was coming out from her body. Aspasia, Anastasia muttered after seeing the woman. Hearing Anastasia, Aspasia looked at her coldly but didn't say anything, since she has even sent her strongest general. It seems that Akosha is really getting impatient, Anastasia said in a mocking voice after seeing Aspasia. Will you come with me willingly or will I have to use force? Aspasia ignored Anastasia's mocking words and said in a cold voice. Force. A sneer appeared on Anastasia's face when she heard Aspasia. Just a few months ago you couldn't even lift your head in front of me, and now you are threatening me. Aspasia nodded her head when she heard Anastasia, but her expression didn't change. I know you are far stronger than me, but don't forget that you are currently under the effect of Her Majesty's poison. In your current condition, you will never be able to defeat me, so instead of wasting our time in a meaningless fight, just follow me obediently. If you follow me obediently, I will even spare the life of this guy, Aspasia said while looking at the man who was watching everything with an indifferent expression. You should leave, Anastasia said to the man. Why? The man asked in a calm voice hearing Anastasia. Are you stupid? Didn't you hear what I just said? She is the strongest general under Akosha's command. There is no way you can face her. I know you are strong, but your rank is way below her. You won't even be able to break her natural defense with your current power. I know she is far stronger than me, and I can't beat her, but I still don't want to leave. Why? Anastasia asked in an irritated voice. It's because. What the man said and his lips curled up slightly. I just found something interesting. Your title the Cursed One is reacting. The effect of your title the Cursed One is being nullified by the title, the Progenitor of the Shadow Dragon. You said you are the Progenitor of the Shadow Dragon, right? The man looked at Anastasia and asked. Yes, Anastasia nodded her head with a confused expression on her face. Well, since that's the case, I think we need to have a good chat. You are done. Suddenly the man and Anastasia heard a cold voice and saw Aspasia looking at them with cold eyes. I wanted to handle everything peacefully, but since you are being stubborn, then don't blame me. The black spear in Aspasia's hand glowed, and she threw it towards Anastasia. Damn, this *ch Anastasia cursed and was about to move away when the man appeared in front of her. Death Guardian Authority. Death Guardian Authority activated. A black aura burst from his body, and the spear that could easily kill hundreds of people of the same rank as that man was caught by him with his bare hands. What? Both Anastasia and Aspasia were shocked, and their eyes almost popped out of their eye sockets. This spear is quite good. I will take it as compensation. Since you tried to hurt my chef, the man said, and threw the black spear toward the ground. Just as he threw the spear towards the ground, his shadow shook slightly and swallowed the spear. You bastard! Aspasia was shocked when the man caught her spear with his bare hands. But her shock soon turned into anger when she suddenly lost connection with her spear. A frightening aura burst forth from Aspasia's body, and she instantly appeared in front of the man, wanting to rip apart his head. The man was not even able to follow Aspasia's movement. but his expression did not change. Just when Aspasia's hands were about to touch him, she suddenly froze. Time Authority, temporal pause activated. The man raised his hand and a black energy covered his entire arm. Master of Shadows Authority activated. Remember my words, although I can't kill you with my current power, it won't be the same next time we meet, the man said and swung his hand which was covered in black energy. Slap. The sound of a slap rang out, and Aspasia, who was frozen, was sent flying away. The man looked at Anastasia, who was frozen as well, and grabbed her hand. Black energy covered both of them, and they disappeared from the place, leaving behind Aspasia, who was lying on the ground with a slap mark on her face. Chapter 564. Inside the Shadow Realm. How long can you last? Anastasia asked, looking towards Volta, who was lying inside a pond that was filled with shadow energy. I'm not sure, maybe 5 or 6 days, Volta replied in a nonchalant voice. Anastasia remained silent after hearing Volta and stared at the shadow energy pond. Is it not working anymore? She asked after a moment of silence. It's still working, but the level of the shadow energy inside it is just too low to work on me. Anastasia rubbed her temples when she heard Volta. Who told you to fight like a barbarian with this weak body of yours? Volta's mouth couldn't help but twitch when he heard Anastasia calling his body weak, but looking at the cracks on his body, he was not able to deny her. Anyway, it was nice knowing you. I hope you'll be reborn as an earthworm in the next life, Anastasia said and turned around to leave. Oh, cruel woman, I am dying here, and instead of finding a way to save me, you are cursing me to be reborn as an earthworm, Volta shouted when he saw Anastasia leaving. What do you mean by dying? Aren't you already dead? Anastasia said without looking back and left from there. To think that I, the great Volta, who was called the Emperor of Flame, would disappear like this, Volta said in a sorrowful voice, but there was a proud smirk on his face. At least, I successfully used the conceptual energy of death against that crow bastard, so I guess it's fine as well, Volta muttered and closed his eyes. It's a pity I won't be able to take my revenge against those bastards who used to call themselves Senior of the Eternal Army, and bullied me when I was a newbie. Volta continued to absorb the shadow energy that was inside the pond, but the cracks on his body didn't show any sign of healing. On the contrary, the cracks that were present on his body were slowly enlarging. Rumble. As Volta was absorbing the shadow energy, the pond he was in started to shake. He opened his burning purple eyes and looked at the shaking pond with a confused expression on his face. Rumble. Suddenly the shaking intensified, and with his spiritual sense, Volta noticed that it was not just the pond, but the entire shadow realm was shaking. What is going on? Volta stood up with a serious expression on his face, thinking someone was once again trying to attack the entrance of the shadow realm. He was about to leave the shadow energy pond to find Anastasia, when something shocking happened. Anastasia left the area of the shadow energy pond while deep in thought. Even if I use the shadow energy pill that Master left behind, it will not be enough to save Volta, as his body is already on the verge of disappearing, Anastasia muttered in a low voice, while looking inside her storage ring. Rumble. As she was searching for something that could help Volta, the ground beneath her feet started to shake. Anastasia's expression changed when she felt the tremor, as she knew that it was impossible for an earthquake to occur inside the shadow realm. She waved her hand and a holographic screen appeared before her, showing the area outside of the shadow realm. Anastasia raised an eyebrow in confusion when she saw there was no one who was trying to attack the portal of the shadow realm. If no one is attacking the portal, then it means... Anastasia's eyes turned serious, and she disappeared from the place she was standing. In an instant, she arrived in the throne room of the castle, and saw the black throne that was the core of the shadow realm, was glowing with faint white light. This white light... Anastasia's eyes opened as wide as saucers when she saw the glowing throne, and her heartbeat accelerated. She waved her hand and a few holographic screens appeared before her, showing images of different places of the shadow realm. In the images, she saw the boundaries of the shadow realm were moving, and its area was increasing. She closed her eyes and sensed the world essence inside the shadow realm, and noticed it was also increasing at a rapid speed. It's really the inheritance process. Anastasia said to herself after seeing the changes that were happening within Shadow Realm. Since the Shadow Realm is growing, suddenly she thought about something and disappeared from the throne room. She appeared in front of the Shadow Energy Pond and saw its area was also increasing. "Oh, cruel woman, what the hell is going on? Why do I feel like the power of the shadow energy inside the pond is increasing?" Volta asked in a baffled voice when he saw Anastasia. "Even the power of the shadow energy is increasing, which confirms my guess that this is really the inheritance process," Anastasia muttered in a low voice after seeing the condition of the shadow energy pond. Inheritance process. When Volta heard Anastasia's muttering, he raised an eyebrow in confusion, but soon he seems to remember something, and his eyes also opened wide. "Are you sure this is the inheritance process? It should be impossible because of because of the soul seals." Anastasia interrupted Volta midway. Volta nodded his head when he heard Anastasia. Anastasia also showed a confused expression and said in an uncertain voice, "I also don't know what is wrong with the soul seals, but I just confirmed that the Shadow Realm is growing, so it is definitely the inheritance process. Since there is something wrong with the soul seals, doesn't it mean the master is going to recall some of his memories?" Volta asked in a low voice after hearing Anastasia. "That's what I'm worried about. I think his soul was severely damaged by something, and when his soul was damaged, some of the seals were destroyed. I just hope he doesn't remember any of those events or things will become more complicated," Anastasia said while rubbing her temples. "By those events, do you mean the ones where you acted like a lusty chef and tried to take advantage of Matza by mixing some strange medicines in his food?" Volta asked, blinking a few times. Anastasia's mouth could not help but twitch when she heard Volta, and she looked at him with a neutral look on her face. Volta coughed awkwardly when he saw Anastasia's natural look and lay down inside the pond again. "I should recover some of my energy, since things are going to become more dangerous for us now that the Shadow Realm is growing," Volta said, and disappeared inside the pond. Anastasia sighed after Volta disappeared and looked towards the portal of the Shadow Realm. Let's hope for the best. Chapter 565. In the capital of the Jenna Empire. Baphomet was looking at the dark sky with a thoughtful look on his face. It's been a few days since Malfer was revived because of the third effect of Baphomet's demon domination skill. Chat-408. Before Malfer's revival, Baphomet was worried that after his revival, Malfer would lose all his memories, and he would not be able to get any information from him about what had happened outside the Shadow Realm that day. But his worries were proven wrong because Malfer was revived with all his memories intact. The only side effect was that Malfer lost 2 of his levels after the revival, but it was a small price to pay to be able to live once again. Since he had all of his memories, Malfer told him everything that had happened that day. From his fight against Volta to the fact that someone helped him while he was fighting against Volta. He did not hide anything and told everything. "The strongest lava demon of the history," Baphomet muttered, thinking about Volta. He stayed silent for a few seconds before rubbing his temples. Things are starting to get annoying. From the things that Malfer told him, Baphomet could tell that there were many other powerful individuals inside the Shadow Realm other than Volta. According to Malfer, Volta's body was black in color, which means he was not real Volta, but a shadow undead. Baphomet never saw a real shadow undead in his life because he was born after the death of the Shadow Monarch, but he had good information about the shadow undeads, so he was sure Volta was also a shadow undead. Other than the problem of the Shadow Realm, there is also the person who tried to help Malfer while he was fighting against Volta. Baphomet did his best to hide the location of the Shadow Realm from everyone, and only told Winterclaw about it. But if what Malfer said was true, then it would mean that there is another person who knew about the Shadow Realm, and his motives are not clear. As a demon who loves to keep everything under his control, Baphomet could not ignore such a thing. There are not many people in the world who can increase the power of disaster-class beings like Malfer, so it shouldn't be hard finding the person who tried to help him that day. Baphomet thought about what he should do next, and many things came into his mind. "I was thinking about meeting with Akosha," as Winterclaw suggested, "but it seems I'll have to delay that plan for now, until I can sort out the things that Malfer told me." While he was deep in thought, Baphomet heard the sound of hurried footsteps. He looked behind him and saw Zagannath coming towards him. What's wrong? Baphomet asked while raising an eyebrow when he saw the nervous expression on Zagonath's face. Master, something happening with the Shadow Realm once again. When Baphomet heard Zagonath, his expression turned ugly. He was still thinking about how to solve the problems Malfer had told him about, but just by looking at Zagonath's face, he could tell that his problems were about to increase. What the hell is wrong with that shitty realm again? He asked, taking a few deep breaths to calm himself. The people who are guarding the area around the Shadow Realm just sent a message that powerful energy fluctuations are coming out from it. Other than the problem of the Shadow Realm, there is also the person who tried to help Malfer while he was fighting against powerful energy fluctuation. Baphomet raised an eyebrow when he heard Zagonath. What is the range of the energy fluctuations? Although there are many high-level concealment formations around the entrance of the Shadow Realm, the fluctuations are still spreading in the area of at least 1 million kilometers. Zagonath said in a hesitant voice because he knew Baphomet was not going to like his answer. Damn it, Baphomet cursed when he heard Zagonath. What are the chances that other people will find out about the Shadow Realm? He asked after considering everything for a moment. Actually, the chances are not high. The entrance of the Shadow Realm is located in a completely secluded area, so there is nothing around it. Even though the energy fluctuations are spreading in an area of around 1 million kilometers, I don't think anyone will find out about it, because no one normally comes into that area. Zagonath said after hearing Baphomet. Continue to monitor that shitty place and tell me if something strange happens, Baphomet said and waved his hand indicating Zagonath to leave. Zagonath bowed his head after hearing Baphomet and quickly left from there. I have a strong feeling that things are going to become messy soon, Baphomet muttered after Zagonath left. Far from the Genno Empire, outside of the Shadow Realm, the person who helped Malfer during his fight against Volta was also looking at the energy fluctuations that were coming out of the portal of the Shadow Realm. So it is finally starting, the person muttered, looking at the portal, now that he is going to recall some of his memories. I am sure he will use the Tower of Ascension as soon as possible, and will come back here. Now I am a step closer to completing my dream, the person muttered and a wide smile appeared on his face. Suddenly the person felt something and looked in the distance. The person could see many demons that were guarding the area, but he did not care about them because he was hiding inside the void, and they could not see him. Looks like things are going to become more complicated for poor Baphomet and Anastasia, the person muttered looking at the far distance and disappeared into the void. A few 100,000 kilometers away from the Shadow Realm, a giant dragon who was a few kilometers big, and had an aura that was far stronger than a disaster class, being suddenly looked in the direction of the Shadow Realm, and started to fly towards it. Chapter 566. In Utopia, the name of the higher world, there are many different types of dragons. Fire dragons, light dragons, water dragons, crystal dragons and many others. The dragons are one of the strongest races in Utopia, and they live in a place called Dragon Islands. The Dragon Islands is a place made by dragons using their high magical knowledge. They created hundreds of different kinds of floating islands, so that all the dragons could live in a suitable environment according to their species. For example, the Fire Dragon tribe lives on an island that is filled with fire element, and is very suitable for their growth. The Dragon Islands is divided into 4 parts: Outer Islands, Middle Islands, Inner Islands and the Central Island. In Dragon Islands, the dragon tribes occupy the island according to their overall strength. For example, the Fire Dragon tribe occupies an island in the middle of the Dragon Islands. Fire Dragon tribe is not the weakest among the dragon tribes, but they are not the strongest either. The Light Dragon tribe is stronger than the Fire Dragon tribe, and occupies an island in the inner part of the Dragon Islands. There are 5 dragon tribes who live in the inner part of the Dragon Islands, including the Light Dragon tribe. The number of dragon tribes who live in the Middle Islands is more than 10, and the number of dragon tribes who live in the Outer Islands is more than 20. But unlike other parts, there is just a single island in the central part, and that island is occupied by a single dragon tribe. The most surprising thing is that compared to other dragon tribes which are quite large, the tribe that is occupying the central island is very small. Other dragon tribes have thousands of dragons, but the dragon tribe that lives on the central island has just 106 dragons. Even though there are only 106 dragons, The reason they can occupy the central island despite the low numbers is because of the Dragon Emperor, the Void Dragon Eldra. The number of Void Dragons is very low, but all of them are far stronger than other dragons. And even among the Void Dragons, Eldra is an anomaly because his strength is simply off the chart. In the past, dragons were never united and even fought against each other because of differences in their abilities. But Eldra single-handedly united all the dragon tribes and became the first Dragon Emperor. The Tomb of Ancient will be opening soon. I need to organize a fair competition so that we can choose the young dragons that will enter the tomb this time, Eldra muttered as he flew without any destination in his mind. Eldra was around 5 kilometers big, and his body was covered in dark purple scales. His deep black eyes were filled with boredom, and the space around him was shaking because of the strange aura that was coming out from his body. As Eldra was flying aimlessly to relieve his boredom, he felt some energy fluctuations coming from the far distance. Eldra stopped flying and looked in the direction where the energy fluctuations were coming from. These fluctuations, since Eldra was a void dragon, he was easily able to recognize that the fluctuations were coming from a different dimension. Is there a hidden dimension in this barren place? Eldra muttered to himself and started to fly in the direction where the fluctuations were coming from. Because of using his skill void travel, Eldra was moving very fast. As he was getting close to the source of energy fluctuations, Eldra started to feel that the energy fluctuations were somewhat familiar. Eldra racked his brain and tried to remember where he had felt similar energy fluctuations, but he was not able to remember anything. In just a few seconds, Eldra was just a few thousand kilometers away from the source of fluctuations. While flying, Eldra noticed signs of a big fight in the area that were left behind because of Malfer and Volta's fight. The people who fought here were not weak, Eldra muttered, and his interest increased even more. Demons. Eldra raised an eyebrow when he noticed many demons were patrolling in the area. He was still a few thousand kilometers away from the source of fluctuations, so Eldra didn't stop even after noticing the demons. Most of the demons were stunned when Eldra completely ignored them and continued to move forward, but no one tried to stop him, because the aura that Eldra was releasing was just too strong for them. Quick, inform the commander. One of the demon guards yelled in a frightened voice after seeing Eldra. Soon all the demons who were patrolling the area went into a frenzy and started to alert their superiors. Soon news about Eldra reached Zagarnath, who was shocked and once again ran to inform Baphomet about him. They created a lot of formations to hide this place. Eldra was astonished when he saw several higher-level formations that had been built in the area to hide the source of the energy fluctuations. Around 10 seconds later, Eldra was just 100 kilometers away from the source of the energy fluctuations, and was easily able to see that it was a portal. Eldra narrowed his big eyes when he saw the black portal, because he felt he had seen this portal somewhere before. Even the energy that was coming out of the portal was somewhat familiar. Eldra used his skills, and his body began to shrink in size. Within no time, his body size reduced from 5 kilometers to 50 meters, and he landed in front of the portal. The moment he landed in front of the portal and the energy coming out of it touched his body, Eldra felt a chill running down his spine, because he finally remembered why the energy that was coming out from the portal seemed familiar. Chapter 567, Naph City. Nathan was reading a document with a focused look on his face. After reading the entire document, he nodded his head and handed the document to the D+ rank hunter who was standing in front of him. It's a good plan, you can proceed with it, Nathan said to Hunter, who sighed in relief after hearing him. We will need some hunters who can use earth element skills to clear the area and help us speed up the construction of the buildings. Just talk to Ron, and he will arrange some hunters for you and your team, Nathan said while waving his hand indicating the D+ rank hunter to leave. The D+ rank hunter nodded his head and left from there. After the hunter left, Nathan took out his communication crystal and contacted Charles, an A+ rank hunter who was responsible for guarding the west side of the city. How is the situation? He asked after the call was connected. Everything is fine for the time being, Charles replied. These monsters are not showing any kind of hostility towards us, and just patrolling the area around the west gate. Good, just keep an eye on them and inform me if something happens, Nathan said, and was about to end the call when Charles spoke once again. Sir, should we try T_? No, Nathan stopped Charles before he could finish speaking. Don't even think about messing with them. But these monsters are not showing any kind of hostility towards. Don't even think about messing with them. But these monsters are not showing any kind of hostility towards us. Me and my team have been here for the last 10 days. And these monsters have not tried to attack us even once. I think we can move towards the west gate and check out what these monsters are guarding, Charles said in a slightly dissatisfied voice after hearing Nathan. He was sure that the monsters in front of him were guarding a powerful treasure, and Nathan and Ron were stopping them, because they wanted to take that treasure for themselves. Nathan rubbed his eyebrows when he heard Charles and felt like slapping him to death. Just by hearing his dissatisfied voice, he could already guess what he was thinking. Not showing any hostility, my *s', Nathan thought inwardly, remembering what had happened 10 days ago, when he and Ron tried to move towards the west gate. It's been 11 days since Evan lost consciousness after coming out of the dream realm. Before Evan faced Noah, the fight that had happened between his shadow undeads and the monster army Damian was leading was very big. Most of the hunters that were present in the city were easily able to feel the massive fluctuations of mana that were coming out because of the fight. Later that day, when Nathan and Ron went to check the location where the fight happened, all they saw were dead monsters. Other than the monsters' dead bodies, they didn't find anything else. The entire battlefield was dyed red because of monster blood. When Nathan and Ron saw this, they were shocked and were not able to understand what had happened there. But soon they felt more mana fluctuations coming from the direction of the west gate. Nathan and Ron wanted to know what had happened, so they moved towards the west gate after feeling the mana fluctuations coming from that direction. And when they were just 200 kilometers away from the west gate, they saw tens of A+ rank monsters patrolling the area in an orderly manner. Ron was so shocked after seeing so many A+ rank monsters that he nearly fainted. Nathan was different from Ron because he recognized the monsters that were patrolling the area. These monsters are similar to the monsters summoned by that brat, Nathan thought, after seeing the black monsters with burning purple eyes. We need to element these monsters or they will destroy the entire city, Ron said in a desperate voice after seeing so many monsters. They are not our enemy. Seeing Ron's desperate expressions, Nathan told him about Evan and his summoning skill. At first, Ron thought that Nathan was joking with him, because he had never heard about a summoning skill that could summon so many high-rank monsters. But looking at Nathan's serious expression, he had no choice but to believe him. By the looks of it, these monsters are guarding something. If they are indeed monsters summoned by your academy student, then it would be fine for us to move forward, right? Ron asked after hearing Nathan. I am not sure, but let's try to talk to them, Nathan said, and they moved towards a group of shadow undeads to ask about Evan. But when they were just 100 meters away from the group of shadow undeads, both Nathan and Ron stopped moving. Cold sweat appeared on their bodies, and they looked behind the group of A+ rank monsters, with a baffled look on their faces. I can feel the aura of 5S rank monsters, Ron said, and turned around to leave. Nathan also turned around and followed after Ron. Just by feeling the killing intent that they are releasing, I am certain that they will attack us if we try to approach them. I think we should just wait for the person who summoned them to come out, Ron said, while wiping the sweat from his forehead. Nathan also nodded his head and did not argue with Ron. Both Ron and Nathan did not even think about fighting against the monsters who released their killing intent, because both of them knew that it was impossible for them to win against them. Nathan sighed lightly and took a deep breath to calm down, after remembering what had happened that day. Look, Charles, I don't care what you are thinking, but I am warning you, don't try to do something stupid or... Nathan did not finish his sentence and ended the call. Although he did not finish his sentence, Charles already knew what he wanted to say. This old fart, Charles cursed after Nathan ended the call, and looked at the group of shadow undeads that was patrolling in front of him. Team leader, should we underscore? Forget it. Who knows what that old fart would do to us if we got caught? One of the members of Charles's team was about to say something, but Charles stopped him. What a waste, look at these monsters. They are just patrolling here and they're like fools. If not because our ranks are low when compared to theirs, I would have. Another member of the Charles team complained. Thump, thump. Suddenly Charles and his team members dropped to their knees, and their bodies started to shake. A look of horror appeared on their faces, and they felt like their souls were about to leave their bodies. Killing intent. A strong killing intent filled the surroundings. The killing intent was so strong that even the surroundings around Charles and his team started to change, and turned blood red in color. Charles tried to lift his head, but his instincts kept screaming at him to continue to look at the ground, and don't lift his head. In fact, it was not only Charles and his team who were on their knees. The people of the entire Naph City, and the monsters within thousands of kilometers of the area were on their knees. Nathan's body kept shaking, and he lifted his head using all of his willpower to look toward the sky. The moment Nathan lifted his head and looked towards the sky, his face lost all of its color. Just what the hell is going on? Chapter 568. When Nathan and a few other hunters with strong willpower raised their heads and looked toward the sky, their faces paled at what they saw. A second ago the sky was bright blue, but now the color of the sky changed and became completely red. The clouds in the sky also turned red, and it seemed as if it was going to rain blood. The killing intent that all the people and monsters were feeling was increasing with each passing second, and it became hard for them to breathe. Amid the sky that looked like it was painted red with blood, slowly a small black eye with red pupil opened. The moment small eye opened, every single person within thousands of kilometers of the area started to shake in fear, and their mentality started to break because of the powerful killing intent that was filling the surroundings. As the people were on the verge of mental breakdown, the killing intent suddenly disappeared. No one knew what had just happened, but everyone heaved a sigh of relief when the killing intent disappeared. What the hell was th_? Nathan was still in the middle of thinking about what just had happened when his body once again shuddered. Dun.me. The sky, which was blood red in color, returned to normal blue, but the blue sky didn't last even for a second, because it turned golden in an instant. Amid the golden sky, a small black eye with a golden pupil opened, and all the people within thousands of kilometers of the area felt their spiritual power increasing. Even Nathan, who was an S-rank hunter, felt a small increase in his spiritual power, and was completely stunned. After a few seconds, the golden sky turned blue once again, and everything returned to normal. Although everything returned to normal, the people didn't dare to stand up and remained on their knees. They were not sure what was happening, but most of the people were afraid that if they stood up something would happen once again. Charles and his team, who was guarding the west side of the city, were lying face first on the ground, with a terrified look on their faces. Charles raised his head a little and looked towards the west gate with a look of horror on his face. Far in the distance, he could see red and golden light coming out from time to time. He did not know what was happening there, but he was sure the phenomenon that just had happened was related to the thing that the black monsters were guarding. The shadow undeads who were patrolling the area were also on the move. Their patrolling speed increased even more, and to the shock of Charles and his team, they even saw 2S rank monsters patrolling with other A+ rank monsters. Only after seeing the S-rank monsters did they realize that if they had tried to advance towards the western gate earlier, they would definitely have died. While the monsters and the people within thousands of kilometers of the area were still trying to understand what had just happened, a strange thing was happening, not so far away from the west gate of Naph City. Not far away from the west gate of the city, the place where Evan lost consciousness after breaking free from the dream realm. A dome that was made of silver stones was releasing red and golden aura from time to time. The stone dome was created by the stone buffalo, and inside the dome, Evan, who was still covered in a black cocoon, was laying. The black cocoon was the thing that was releasing golden and red aura from time to time, and even though the dome was completely isolated, the red and golden light was still able to escape from it. Inside the cocoon made of shadow energy, Evan was still unconscious. His expressions were changing with each passing moment, and it seemed as if he was dreaming. While he was in the dream, some changes were happening within his body. The shadow energy inside his monarch core was becoming denser, and its power was gradually increasing. The amount of shadow energy within his core was the same as before, but its quality was becoming higher. Deep inside him, Evan's soul was also showing an abnormal reaction. His soul was 10% damaged when he fought against Noah inside the dream realm. But because of coming into contact with the pressure released by the whale-type monster while leaving the dream realm, the damage to his soul increased to 20% at that time. Currently, Evan's damaged soul was covered in shadow energy, and the shadow energy that was covering his soul was very different from the normal shadow energy. Normally, the shadow energy releases the aura of death whenever Evan uses it, but the shadow energy that was covering his soul was releasing a warm aura, which was completely different from the aura of death. It was like the shadow energy that was covering his soul was completely different from the shadow energy that he used. Because of the shadow energy that was covering his soul, Evan's soul was healing at a rapid speed. In these 10 days, his soul was healed by 3%. Considering that soul damage takes months or years to heal, this was a godly speed. As his soul was healing, Evan's spiritual power was also increasing and becoming stronger than before. Although his soul was still 17% damaged, his spiritual power was already on par with the previous level of his spiritual power. The rune of evolution on Evan's chest was also glowing and enhancing the strength of his physical body, so that it would not explode due to the sudden increase in his spiritual power. Some notifications were appearing on Evan's status window from time to time, but because he was still unconscious, he was not able to see them for the time being. Chapter 569. Baphomet was sitting on a chair in a place that looked like a garden, or rather, in a place that looked like a demonic garden. The grass in the garden was bright crimson in color, and gave off scorching heat. Different colored bushes emitting miasma were growing everywhere, and small birds with 3 or 4 heads were chirping on the trees. There was a pool of lava in the middle of the garden, and many fishes were swimming in it. Baphomet took a sip of the demonic dew, and admired the scenery around him. The sense of beauty of demons is indeed different from others. A tall man who was sitting in front of Baphomet said after taking a look around him. The man had 2 black horns on his head, and his skin was light purple in color. "I'll take it as a compliment," Baphomet said, putting down the cup of demonic dew in his hand, and resting his chin on his palm. "It was a compliment," Eldra said, looking at Baphomet. "So what is the reason for the demon monarch inviting me here?" "I don't think I need to explain the reason in detail, as I'm sure you already know it." Eldra also took a sip of demonic dew, and said after a moment, "Is it because of Shadow Realm?" Baphomet smiled lightly when he heard Eldra. "Since you recognized that place in a single glance, then I guess the rumors were true." Eldra looked at Baphomet with an indifferent look after hearing him and put down the cup. "So, what do you want to talk about?" "Just to let you know that I am busy preparing for the Tomb of Ancient, so I don't have much time." "Chill, man, you are not the only one who is busy preparing for Tomb of the Ancient. I am also busy, you know," Baphomet said when he heard Eldra. Eldra's face remained unchanged even after hearing Baphomet, and he continued to look at him with the same explosions. Dun.me. "Huh," Baphomet sighed when he saw Eldra's expression, and his face also turned indifferent. "What are you planning to do?" "What do you mean?" Eldra raised an eyebrow when he heard Baphomet. "Are you kidding me?" "You know very well what I mean," Baphomet said with a sneer on his face. "I am talking about the Shadow Realm. What are you planning to do now?" Hearing Baphomet, Eldra's eyebrows relaxed and he shook his head. "So that's what you're worried about." "I'm not really planning anything. Actually, I have no interest in the Shadow Realm." Baphomet was stunned when he heard Eldra, because he could tell that he was telling the truth. You are seriously not interested in Shadow Realm?" Just to make sure he was not hearing things, Baphomet asked once again. Eldra didn't reply to Baphomet, and just looked at him with the same expression on his face. Baphomet looked at him for a few seconds before shaking his head. "I am honestly surprised that you are not interested in Shadow Realm. From what I know, you were always into _ Listen, kid, it's in the past and I'm not interested in it anymore," Eldra said and stood up. Baphomet was not angry when Eldra called him a kid because he was indeed quite young when compared to Eldra. Eldra is also one of the few that Baphomet does not want to fight against, as his power is no less than that of Alyria or Winterclaw. As Baphomet watched Eldra leaving, many thoughts flashed inside his mind. "I think it will be interesting." Finally, Baphomet made a decision, and a sly smile appeared on his face. "Eldra, I have a proposition for you. Would you like to hear it before leaving?" Before Eldra left, Baphomet said to him. Eldra stopped and turned to look at Baphomet, who was still sitting in the same spot. He thought for a moment and decided to hear Baphomet's proposition. Seeing Eldra was coming back, Baphomet smiled inwardly and told him about his proposition after he sat down. Half an hour later. I will let you know when the time comes, Baphomet said, looking at Eldra, who already turned into a 50 meters long dragon and was about to leave. All right, Eldra nodded his head and flapped his wings. Just before Eldra took off, Baphomet thought about something and couldn't help but ask, by the way, what were you doing at that place? As far as I know, you rarely leave the Dragon Islands. Eldra's body stiffened when he heard Baphomet, and a depressed look appeared on his face. Baphomet was baffled when he saw the depressed look on Eldra's face, because for some reason he felt like Eldra was on the verge of crying. A few days ago that woman came to Dragon Islands, Eldra said while ribbing his head with his claws. That woman. Baphomet raised an eyebrow when he heard Eldra, and a confused look appeared on his face. But soon something clicked in his mind, and he understood what Eldra was talking about. When Alyria left from here after inquiring a few days ago, she did tell me that she was going to play with dragons. Baphomet looked at Eldra with sympathy and felt pity for him. That woman is a maniac. She just wants to fight 24x7. I was tired of her stupidity and left Dragon Island to take a breather, Eldra said in a depressed voice. Suddenly he thought about something and looked at Baphomet with a serious look on his face. Make sure that maniac doesn't find out about Shadow Realm. Is there a problem? Baphomet asked in confusion when he saw Eldra's serious expression. You don't know. Eldra was stunned when he heard Baphomet. Baphomet felt even more confused when he saw Eldra's stunned expression. Eldra shook his head when he saw a confused expression on Baphomet's face. I'm not sure if it's true or not, but I heard that Alyria fought against the Shadow Monarch in the past, and in that battle, the Shadow Monarch, Eldra said, and transformed into his human form once again. He brought his hands near his ears and made a cutting gesture. Did this to her? Baphomet's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets when he heard Eldra, and for some reason, he started to feel a bit of respect for Shadow Monarch. I don't know what that maniac would do if she found out about Shadow Realm. So Eldra didn't finish his sentence and just looked at Baphomet with a serious look. Don't worry, I will make sure she doesn't find out about this. Eldra nodded his head and turned into a dragon once again. He flapped his wings and disappeared inside the void in an instant. I think I now have a solid guess as to how the Shadow Monarch died, Baphomet muttered in a low voice after Eldra left. Chapter 570. Deep within the wilderness of Ravenhurst City, near the area of Inferno Dungeon, 4 S-rank hunters were sitting inside a room with dark expressions on their faces. The air inside the room was sometimes trembling due to the aura they were emitting, and the atmosphere inside the room was extremely solemn. The 4 hunters were the higher-ups of the Dark Guild: Elijah, Xavier, Sarah and Nate. We need to do something, Elijah said in a furious voice. I agree. Those bastards are openly attacking all our bases. We can't just sit back and do nothing. Xavier nodded his head in agreement hearing Elijah. Before leaving Astarte City, Evan had told Sebastian the locations of the Dark Guild's bases. Sebastian shared the locations of these bases with the authorities of other cities, and they destroyed many bases of the Dark Guild in the past 20 days. Due to the sudden attack, most of the people of the Dark Guild operating those bases were killed, and very few people were able to escape from there. In just a few days, the Dark Guild lost their foothold in most of the cities. So, what do you guys want to do? Sarah asked after hearing Xavier and Elijah. We must launch a full-scale attack. I am sure that with all the preparation we have done over the past few years, we can definitely destroy them all, Xavier said in a cold voice, and the muscles all over his body bulged out. Elijah did not deny what Xavier said, seemingly agreeing with him. Have you guys forgotten what happened in Naph City 20 days ago? Sarah asked with a raised eyebrow when she heard Xavier and Elijah. Hey Sarah, don't tell me you are afraid of that guy, Xavier said in a dissatisfied voice hearing Sarah. Dun.me. Don't forget he is the one who killed your sister Amara, Elijah added. The air in the room turned cold when Elijah mentioned Amara, and Sarah looked at him with murderous eyes. Elijah gulped down his saliva when he felt Sarah's killing intent and looked away from her. That's enough. Nate, who was silent all of this time, suddenly spoke, and all the killing intent that was filling the room disappeared. Nate had light brown hair, and he was 190 centimeters tall. His eyes were green in color, and his face was hidden behind a red mask that he was wearing. Sarah snorted when she heard Nate and stopped looking at Elijah, who sighed in relief. "Where is Damian?" Nate asked in an indifferent voice after everyone calmed down. "As punishment for failing in the mission last time, I sent him to the south to gather the monsters," Sarah replied, hearing Nate. Because Evan fell unconscious after breaking free from the dream realm, he was not able to chase after Damian and Sonic Bat. When Damian received news that Noah had failed to kill Evan, he had no choice but to flee from Naph City and return to the Dark Guild's base. "What about Noah? Is there any news about him?" Hearing what Nate said, Sarah shook her head. "There is still no news about him. Although we are sure that he managed to successfully escape from Naph City despite being seriously injured, his whereabouts are still unknown." Nate frowned when he heard Sarah and tapped his finger on the table. "Let's stop thinking about him for now. He might be recovering from injuries, and will contact us once he recovers," Xavier said. "Our current priority is to think about how to deal with those bastards." Xavier is right. That guy is not weak. We should stop worrying about him and think about our current situation. Elijah nodded his head after hearing Xavier. "So you two are suggesting launching a full-scale attack, right?" Nate asked, looking at Elijah and Xavier. Both Elijah and Xavier nodded their heads after listening to Nate. "And you're against their suggestion, right?" he asked, looking at Sarah, who also nodded. "Can you explain your reason for not agreeing with them?" "Isn't it obvious?" Sarah said. "According to Damian, after that guy killed the lightning horse and the golden lion, they both became part of the monsters summoned by him. If that's true, then doesn't that mean we need to be careful when facing him? If he can really summon monsters after killing them, then doing a full-scale attack is definitely not a good idea." Elijah and Xavier furrowed their eyebrows after hearing Sarah, because both of them knew she was right. If the information is correct and he can summon monsters after killing them, then launching a full-scale attack will definitely not be a good idea. Because in a full-scale attack, if Evan kills a large number of monsters and summons them back, then it would be a very big problem for the Dark Guild. Nate also nodded his head after hearing Sarah, but the words that came out of his mouth were completely different. "But I also think we should still launch a full-scale attack." Hearing what Nate said, Sarah raised an eyebrow. Even Elijah and Xavier looked at him with confusion. Nate shook his head after seeing their confused expressions and explained his reason. "That man is becoming powerful very fast. Just a few months ago, he was nothing more than an F-rank hunter. But look at him now. He is now someone who can face many S-rank monsters on his own," Nate said in a serious tone. "He is still not an S-rank hunter, but he can already kill S-rank monsters. What do you think will happen if we give him more time to progress, and he reaches S-rank?" The expressions of Sarah and the other two turned serious upon hearing Nate, especially Sarah, because she knew very well how fast Evan's powers had grown in these past few months. "If we don't kill him now and give him more time to grow, it will be more difficult for us to kill him." After he finished speaking, Nate looked at Sarah and the others and waited for their response. "Nate is right." Xavier was the first to speak. "We must kill him now or else it will be more difficult in the future." Elijah also nodded his head. "So, what is your opinion?" Nate asked Sarah after the other two agreed. Sarah did not answer him immediately and fell into deep thought. After thinking about everything for a few minutes, she lifted her head and nodded her head. "So which city are we going to start with?" Nate smiled slightly after hearing Sarah's words, and stood up from his chair. "What do you mean, which city are we going to start from? Didn't we just agree to launch a full-scale attack?" Sarah was confused for a moment after hearing Nate, but soon something clicked in her mind, and her eyes opened wide. "Don't tell me underscore." Nate's smile widened seeing Sarah's shocked expression, and he nodded his head. "We are going to attack all the city at the same time. It's time to show them our true strength." Chapter 571, Naph City. It has been 35 days since Evan lost consciousness after the fight against Noah. The city already returned to normal during these 35 days. With the help of higher-level hunters who could use earth element-related skills, building the city once again was not a difficult task. The most difficult task was to calm down the people who survived after the battle. Because of the sudden attack of the Dark Guild, the number of people who lost their lives was more than 500,000. Although most of the things returned to normal in the city, many people were still scared, and the atmosphere of the city was quite gloomy. Furthermore, everyone in the city knew that something was wrong in the western part of the city. Authorities had forbidden anyone from going near the city's western gate, and people could sometimes feel strange energy waves coming from that direction. Many people even started to suspect that the incident that occurred more than half a month ago, where the sky turned red and golden, is related to the incident occurring in the western part of the city. The people of the city were already scared because of the Dark Guild. Their homes were destroyed and many people lost their loved ones because of the attack of monsters. At such a time, the fear of something dangerous happening in the western part of the city was making people restless. The crime rate in the city reached all-time high, and the authorities were having difficulty controlling the people. Currently, a meeting was being held in the administration building of Naph City to discuss the situation of the city and what they should do next. Dun.me. There were a total of 8 people inside the meeting room, and the atmosphere was quite tense. Are you nuts? Nathan said angrily. You want to attack them? Have you thought about the consequences of your foolish idea? You're the one being the fool here. Ronan, who had come to Naph City a few days ago, said with a sneer on his face. The people of the city are getting restless. If we don't resolve the situation quickly, who knows what will happen? I agree with Sir Ronan. Charles, who was sitting beside Ronan, said, I just received the reports from my team that it is getting harder to control the people, because all of them are getting restless due to the situation on the western side of the city. You think you can solve the situation by attacking them? Nathan objected. What if the situation gets worse because of your foolish action? Those monsters are only staying in an area within 200 kilometers of the western gate. They haven't tried to harm anyone during this time. What if underscore? So you're suggesting we leave those monsters alone? Ronan said coldly. What if those monsters go on a rampage tomorrow and start killing people? Can you take responsibility for them? I think Ronan has a point, said Jed, an S-rank hunter who came from the city of Ravenhurst. Although I understand what Nathan is trying to say, we can't ignore the possibility that those monsters could go on a rampage and start killing people. I also agree with him, said Clark, an A+ rank hunter of the Naph City. Suppose we attack those monsters. But, are you guys confident of defeating them? Said Margaret, who came from a straight city. From the information we gathered these past few days, we know that there are at least 5 S-rank monsters, and about 100 A+ rank monsters. And even if we somehow succeed in defeating them, have you thought about the consequences? We will certainly lose large numbers of hunters, which we cannot afford in our present situation, Nathan added. Nathan is right. I don't think we need to take such an unnecessary risk. Ron also agreed with Nathan. Unnecessary risk. Hearing Ron's words, Ronan shook his head. Have you forgotten what happened more than half a month ago? More than 10,000 people lost their minds due to the killing intent released by someone. And you know very well who is responsible for that incident, quote. Everyone in the room fell silent after hearing Ronan. The bodies of Charles and a few other people shuddered when they remembered the cold killing intent that they felt more than half a month ago. I think those monsters are dangerous and we can't leave them alone, otherwise we might face a similar incident as that time, said Mio, a girl with a chubby face. She was an A+ ranked hunter and was from Naph City. Even if we decide to attack them, we need a proper plan. We can't attack carelessly because those monsters are not weak, Clark said. Don't worry. For all you know, those monsters are summoned beings from a student of Astarte Academy, Ronan said. The easiest way to solve this problem is to subdue the summoner. Some of our top-ranked hunters will face the monsters, while a team will head towards the western gate and look for that guy. In this way, we will be able to solve the problem without much effort. Are you planning to kill him? Nathan asked with furrowed eyebrows when he heard Ronan. Of course not. That guy is the one who saved the city from the Dark Guild. There is no way we will kill him. We are simply going to capture him so we can open up the western part of the city and calm down the restless people, Ronan said with a serious look on his face. Most of the people in the room agreed with Ronan. Is this all right? Ron asked Nathan in a low voice. Nathan shook his head when he heard Ronan stood up. I don't know, but I am not going to take part in this madness. he said to Ron, and turned around to leave. Where are you going, Nathan? Ronan asked when he saw Nathan was leaving the room. Other hunters who were present in the room also looked at him in confusion. I don't need to tell you where I'm going, Nathan replied to Ronan without looking back. We are going to discuss the strategy for underscore. I don't care about your strategy because I am not going to take part in your stupid action, Nathan said, and opened the door of the room. Ronan's face turned red from anger hearing Nathan. You are an S-rank hunter, it is your responsibility to underscore. F-U*K your responsibility because I don't give a sh*T. Nathan said coldly while looking at Ronan over his shoulder. If you have any problem with that, then you are welcome to try me. You underscore. Ronan was furious hearing Nathan, but before he could say anything, Nathan left the room. After leaving the room, Nathan rubbed his eyebrows and sighed inwardly. Capture the summoner, he muttered and looked in the direction of the western gate. Do these fools think that a person who can summon so many monsters can be captured so easily? Nathan thought about how Evan killed the Titan elephant with just a single attack, and sighed once again. These fools don't know, but the real danger is not from the monsters, but from the man behind them. Chapter 572. Everything went smoothly. We will attack in 2 days, Ronan said, holding a communication crystal inside a room in one of the recently built hotels. The aura around Ronan was a bit unstable as he had advanced to S rank a few days ago, and still had to stabilize his core. No one objected to your suggestion. Hearing Ronan's words, a man asked in a surprised voice from the other end of the communication crystal. Nathan, Ron and Margaret were against the suggestion of the attack, but because of the incident that happened more than half a month ago, I was successfully able to convince Ron and Margaret, Ronan said in a slightly hesitant voice. Just Ron and Margaret? What about Nathan? I tried to reason with him, but he refused to take part in the attack, and left the meeting midway. Ronan's heart skipped a beat, and cold sweat appeared on his forehead, when the person on the other end of the crystal didn't say anything after listening to him. Well, we can't do anything about him since he refused to participate in the attack, but make sure the rest of the plan goes smoothly, the man finally replied after a minute of silence. Ronan finally calmed down after listening to the man, and spoke in a reassuring voice. Don't worry, I'll make sure everything goes smoothly. All right, if anything happens let me know, the man said and ended the call. Looks like that Nathan is a lot smarter than he looks, Sarah said to Nate after he ended the call. It doesn't matter whether he participates or not. Even without him, we will be able to get good information about the power of those summoned monsters. If those monsters are weak, it will be much easier for us to get rid of that guy when we attack him. But if those monsters are strong, they will get rid of the hunters of Naph City for us, Nate said in an indifferent voice while putting away the crystal. Overall, no matter what the outcome of the fight is, it will be a win-win situation for us, Elijah said with a cold smile on his face. 2 days later, in the western part of the Naph City, thump, thump, the deafening echo of thunderous footsteps reverberated through the surroundings, resonating as the army of thousands of hunters advanced in perfect formation. Ronan, who was hovering in the sky, looked at the hunters who were moving towards the western gate, and nodded his head in satisfaction. Margaret, Ron and Jed were also hovering beside Ronan, and were looking at the hunters. Jed had a serious expression on his face, while Margaret and Ron were still unsure about their decision, and were occasionally looking at the back of the moving army of hunters. At the rear end of the hunter army, far away from Ron and others, Nathan was looking at the hunters without any expression on his face. That coward refused to participate in the attack, but he still has the gall to come here, Ronan said in a cold voice when he noticed Nathan. Ron, Margaret and Jed frowned when they heard Ronan. We should ask him to leave or he mig underscore. Can you shut your foul mouth? Margaret said coldly and looked at him with narrowed eyes. I don't know what you are trying to achieve by barking like a dog, but if you don't shut up, I will also retreat from this attack. You underscore. Ronan was furious hearing Margaret, but he did not dare to say anything. Margaret's threat was one thing, but Ronan knew too well that he could not win against her. He took a deep breath and closed his mouth without saying anything. Margaret just snorted, seeing angry expressions on Ronan's face, and stopped looking at him. 1 hour later, the army of the hunters was just 2 kilometers away from the territory of shadow undeads. There are 5,000 hunters, and they are all the best of the best, Ron said as they were about to face the shadow undeads. Margaret, Ronan and I will confront the monsters along with the hunters, and will draw all their attention towards us. Meanwhile, Jed and his team will head towards the west gate and search for Evan. Is that clear? Ron asked while looking at Jed and others. Everyone nodded their heads with serious expressions on their faces, because all of them knew that it was not going to be an easy task. Jed, you and your team will move away from the main army, and will wait for our signal. Make sure you head towards the west gate only after receiving our signal. All right? Jed nodded his head in agreement, looking at 2A+ rank and 3A rank hunters who were part of his team. It's a pity we can't teleport near the west gate area directly, Charles said inside lightly. It can't be helped. We tried to use the teleportation artifact to teleport near the area of the west gate, but it turns out that the space around the west gate is locked, and we can't teleport there. Jed said in a disappointed tone because his mission would have been 10 times easier if he could have teleported near the west gate area. The space around the west gate was locked because of the sonic barriers of the sonic butterflies. Evan's shadow undeads created that barrier to protect him. We will try to find him as soon as possible. Give us the signal after you attract their attention, Jed said after a moment, and left with 5 hunters who were part of his team. Let's go. Ronan and the other hunters watched them leave, before they also started to move towards the area where shadow undeads usually patrol. In just a few minutes, the army was just a few hundred meters away from the area of shadow undeads. But the moving army suddenly came to an abrupt halt, because they saw 3 shadow undeads leaving their patrol area and coming towards them. Chapter 573. Ronan, Margaret, Ron, Charles, Mio, Clark and a few other hunters stopped moving forward and signaled the army following them to halt. They were still 500 meters away from the area where the shadow undead usually patrolled, but to their surprise, they noticed 3 shadow undeads standing in their way. One was a small cat, while the other 2 were humanoid monsters. When Ron and the other hunters caught sight of them, they became fully alert, and their faces became extremely serious. I can't sense anyone else except these 3, Margaret said after inspecting the area with her spiritual senses. You don't need to be so nervous, Adam said indifferently when he saw their serious expression. We're just here to warn you. When Margaret and the other hunters heard Adam speak, they were stunned because they did not expect him to talk to them. Adam ignored their stunned expressions and continued speaking. Our master ordered us to kill anyone who tries to approach this area. You all are very close to entering the area that is currently under the control of our master. If you continue to advance, we will have no choice but to kill all of you. Under your master's control, Ronan said with a sneer on his face. He dares to claim that this area is under his control. Who does he think he is? He's the one who saved this city while you were running around like a dog, Adam said in a matter-of-fact tone after listening to Ronan. You bastard, you are just a summoned monster, and you dare to talk to me like this. I will underscore. Ronan stopped mid-sentence as he felt a cold killing intent permeate his entire body, and he looked up to see the other humanoid monster that had accompanied Adam looking at him with its cold, burning purple eyes. Seeing the cold eyes of the monster, Ronan subconsciously took a step back. Kazal lost interest in Ronan the moment he took a step back. He looked back at Adam and said in a calm voice, "Let's go back. We are here to warn them because we know Master really doesn't want to kill anyone for no reason. But if they still dare to invade our territory, we will wipe them out." Quote. Muo. Hana nodded her head in agreement and climbed onto Adam's shoulder, looking as if she wanted to get a free ride to way back. Margaret and Ron were looking at Kazal with serious expression, because they could feel that he was very strong. Moreover, although Hana and Adam were just A+ rank, both Ron and Margaret could tell that even those 2 were not normal. While Margaret and Ron were evaluating Adam, Kazal and Hana's strength, Ronan was fuming internally. It was one thing that Margaret had insulted him earlier, but the fact that Adam, who is just an A+ ranked monster, had also insulted him made his heart burn with anger. And as if that wasn't enough, he also felt humiliated because just one look from Kazal had scared him off. Who said you can leave from here? Ronan said in a cold voice seeing Kazal and others were leaving. Kazal and Adam, who just turned around to leave, stopped and looked at Ronan, who was glaring at them with furious eyes. You all are nothing more than monsters who are occupying the land of Naph City. We will kill every single one of you, and will reclaim the land that belongs to us," Ronan said and smiled coldly. "Not only that, I will personally teach that stupid master of yours a lesson once I circa underscore." Before Ronan finished speaking, the temperature of the surroundings dropped. This idiot. The faces of Margaret and Ron changed when they felt the sudden killing intent and cursed Ronan. A black dagger appeared in Kazal's hand, and he slashed it in Ronan's direction. Swoosh! The air and space were ripped apart, and a sharp dagger light went towards Ronan at lightning speed. Although Ronan was scared less because of the sudden killing intent, he was still an S-rank hunter. Seeing the sharp dagger light coming towards him, he lifted his hand and was about to activate his skill. But before he could activate his skill, Hana's eyes shined, and Ronan lost focus for a moment. Although it was just for a moment, it was more than enough for Kazal's attack to reach its destination. Seeing Ronan was about to get hit by the attack, Ron and Margaret wanted to help him, but just as they thought about helping him, the gravity around them changed, and they lost their balance for a split second. Ronan's eyes opened wide in terror as he watched the sharp dagger light coming toward his neck at lightning speed. Just when the dagger light was about to chop off his head, his safety artifact activated, and a barrier covered his body. But, bang, the moment the sharp dagger light touched the barrier, it shattered like glass. Although the barrier was not able to stop the attack, it reduced its power by a lot, and gave Ronan enough time to shift his position and dodge the attack. "Listen, you pighead," quote. Before Ronan could breathe a sigh of relief after dodging the attack, he heard Kazal's voice. "We were hoping that after receiving a warning you would all turn back and leave, but..." Kazal's purple eyes blazed and he said in an ice-cold voice, "Oh, since you dare try to insult a master, I will be waiting for you to enter our territory, so that I can plunge my dagger into your filthy mouth with my own hands." The flames in Hana and Adam's eyes were also blazing, and they were looking at Ronan as if they were looking at a dead man. Kazal, Adam and Hana did not try to attack again, as Margaret and the other hunters were now ready for their attacks. After Kazal finished speaking, all three of them turned around and started leaving. Margaret and the other hunters didn't try to attack them as well, because they were also stunned by this sudden event. "Oh right, one more thing." Suddenly Kazal stopped and without looking back said something that chilled Ronan's heart. "Even if you all decide to retreat now, I will still come after that pig's head and give him a painful death." Chapter 574. "So, what is their decision?" Oli asked after Adam, Hana and Kazal returned. "They are still discussing, but looking at their attitude, I think we need to be ready for the fight," Adam said, while putting down Hana from his shoulder. "Well, can't say I'm surprised. I already know that those humans are not going to back down just because of a warning," Stoney said while shaking his head. "I already told you guys that we don't need to give them any warning," Titan Elephant said in a thunderous voice. "We should have just waited quietly and killed them when they got here." Yeah, we heard you, big guy," Oli said in an annoyed tone, as even the Titan Elephant's normal voice was equivalent to a low-level sonic attack that could make someone's ears bleed. "Most of us already know that they will not back down, even if we gave them a warning," Kazal said in a cold voice, looking in the direction where Ronan and others were discussing. "If you already knew they weren't going to back down, then why did you bother warning them?" Titan Elephant asked in a confused voice when he heard Kazal. "It seems that in contrast to your huge body, your brain is smaller than a peanut," Oli said while playing with her Cursebane staff. "The warning was just a facade. Our true goal was something else." "Something else?" Adam looked at Titan Elephant and said calmly, "The most important thing in a battle between two armies is the morale of the soldiers. Most of the hunters who came here already knew that we were the ones who killed the monsters that were destroying the city. They know that we are much stronger than them, but they still dared to come here. Do you know why?" Quote. Titan Elephant shook his head when he heard Adam's question. Instead of Adam, it was Oli who explained to Titan Elephant this time. She pointed her staff in the direction where the hunters were discussing and said with a cold smile on her face, "This is because they trust those who are leading them. They believe that the S-ranked hunters who are leading them are stronger than us, and will lead them to victory." After saying this, Oli lowered her staff and looked at Titan Elephant. "But what do you think will happen if someone from our side suddenly appears in front of them?" and crushes their leaders in front of them. Titan Elephant tilted his big head hearing Oli, and said in an uncertain voice, "They will laugh at their leaders and will mock them rest of their lives." All the shadow undeads who heard Titan Elephant. Your brain really is smaller than a peanut, Oli said, and tried her best not to use her curse skills on him. If someone from our side suddenly appears in front of them and shows greater power than their leaders, they will lose confidence, and it will be very easy for us to win, Stony said, while looking at Titan Elephant with disdainful eyes. Oh, the Titan Elephant nodded in understanding after hearing Stony's words. Is that why Kazal attacked him and said he would kill that guy? Yes, Oli nodded her head and pointed in the direction of the hunters. Look at them now. Most of the hunters who came here with them are now looking in our direction with uncertain looks. Unlike before, now they don't have full confidence in their leaders, and it will give us a big advantage during the fight. Titan Elephant looked in the direction of the hunters, and noticed that Oli was right, and most of the hunters that came with Ronan and others were looking in their direction with uncertain looks. There are still two things that I don't understand. Titan Elephant stopped looking at the hunters after a moment, and looked back at Oli and others. What is it now? Stony asked. Do we really need to go that far? These guys are practically nothing compared to the huge number of monsters we faced a few days ago. I think we could have easily won this battle even without using this method. This battle is different from the other battles we fought till now, Adam said in a serious voice. Normally we don't need to worry about dying in a battle, because Master can always summon us back even if we lose. But currently Master is unconscious, and we will not be able to come back if lose against them. More importantly, we have to make sure those people cannot harm Master, so we need to take advantage of everything that can increase the chances of our victory. If we act carelessly and lose against them, Master will be in danger because he is still unconscious. Kazal added after Adam finished speaking. Do you understand now? Oli asked the Titan Elephant. Yes, Titan Elephant nodded its giant hearing Oli. So, what was the second thing that you did not understand? Stony asked, looking at Titan Elephant curiously. You guys keep saying I have a brain the size of a peanut, but in reality aren't we all brainless? The Titan Elephant said in a confused voice. We had brains when we were alive, but after becoming shadow undeads. After the Titan Elephant spoke, the atmosphere became completely silent. Oli, Adam and the other shadow undeads who heard him touched their heads and tried to process what they had heard. After a few seconds, all of them finally processed what they just heard, and a shocked look appeared on their faces. F***K, I am really brainless. Adam was first to react, and he said out loudly. What should I do? How can I use my 180 points of IQ without my brain? Oli said in a scared voice. Your IQ was 180. Of course, I was one of the smartest people when I was alive. Yes, she was the smartest. That's why she got the most painful death from Master, Adam said in a mocking voice when he heard Oli. Oli was furious when she heard Adam and lifted her staff to use her curse skill on him. Kazal watched everything without showing any kind of emotion on his face, but inwardly he was also stunned that he was brainless. They are coming. Stony, who did not care about being mindless, said when he saw the hunters were moving towards them. All the shadow undeads immediately stopped arguing when they heard Stony and became deadly serious. Let's end this as soon as possible, so that we can solve the problem of our brains, Oli said in a serious voice. Yes, all the shadow undeads who heard her said loudly, and became even more motivated to end the fight as soon as possible. Chapter 575. Our main task is to catch the summoner. As soon as we catch the summoner, victory will be ours. So once the fight starts, focus on defending instead of attacking, Ron said, looking at the hunters who were still nervous after what happened a few minutes ago. All the hunters nodded their heads in unison hearing Ron, but their confidence was still low. Damn, this is going to be a lot harder than we initially thought, Ron muttered in a frustrated tone, seeing the nervous faces of the hunters. It's all because of a certain man who couldn't keep his mouth shut and almost got killed, Margaret said with a sneer on her face, and glanced at Ronan from the corner of her eyes. Ronan clenched his fists tightly when he heard Margaret's words, but decided to keep his mouth closed. There is no need to fight among ourselves, otherwise it will become even more difficult for us to complete the task, Ron said in a serious voice, seeing Ronan's and Margaret's behavior. Let's move now. Jed and his team is still waiting for our signal, Ron said, and ordered all the hunters to move forward. Although most of the hunters were nervous, they still followed Ron's order and moved forward. Let's make an example out of these people, so no one comes here to bother us until Master wakes up, Kazal said, and looked at Stony, after seeing the hunters were coming towards them. Seeing Kazal was looking at him, Stony backed away from the rest of the shadow undeads, and tapped one of its feet on the ground. Just as he tapped its foot, rumble, the ground started to shake, and the next second, whoosh, a large fortress that was made of silver-colored stones emerged from the ground. The walls of the fortress were 100 meters high, and looked extremely durable. Roars of monsters reverted throughout the surroundings, and shadow undeads of the monsters who were long-range attackers like flame lions, lightning wolves, aqua, and many others appeared at the top of the fortress walls. Tump. Orcs, earthbears, astronax, necros, and other shadow undeads with high defense and attack power jumped down from the fortress walls and stood in front of it. Adam, follow the plan we prepared earlier, Kazal said, and jumped to the very top of the fortress from where he could see everything perfectly. Let's go, Lightning Horse said, and the S-rank shadow undeads also moved and appeared in front of the small group of shadow undeads who jumped down from the fortress walls. The S-rank shadow undeads who were standing in front were Lightning Horse, Golden Lion, and Titan Elephant. Kazal was staying behind, so that he could provide support if anything unexpected happened. Meanwhile, Stony was maintaining the fortress. This Margaret and other hunters were completely stunned when they saw the fortress that shadow undeads created. Their numbers were very low, but with the help of the fortress, they could fight against the hunters on equal footing. Now I can understand how they were able to kill so many monsters, Ron muttered in a low voice. They are really not normal summon monsters. Margaret also nodded her head in agreement. Ronan didn't say anything, but he was extremely nervous inwardly because of Kazal's threat. His original plan was to run away after the fight started, but looking at Kazal, who was standing at the top of the fortress, he felt that it wouldn't be an easy task for him to escape from there. Charles, Clark, Mio. Ron looked at the 3A+ rank hunters. We will face those 3S rank monsters. You three lead the other hunters and attract the attention of other monsters, so that Jed and his team can move towards the west gate. Fight a defensive battle because our main target is the summoner, not these monsters. Charles and the other two nodded their heads, hearing Ron, and looked at the orcs, astronax, necros, and other shadow undeads with serious looks on their faces. Let's go, Margaret said to Ronan and Ron, and all three of them flew away from the army of hunters. The Lightning Horse, Golden Lion, and Titan Elephant also followed after them and went away from the shadow undeads, so that they would not get caught in their fight. Mio, you stay back and provide support along with mages and archers. Clark and I will stop those monsters, Charles said, seeing the shadow undeads were ready to attack. They are not coming towards us. It looks like they want to play a defensive battle, Adam said with a sneer on his face, and looked at Rocky, who was standing at the wall of fortresses, along with 20 wyverns and Ariel. Big brother, you and your team can start now. Rocky's eyes lit up when he heard Adam, and it flapped its wings. Along with Rocky, the wyverns and Ariel also flapped their wings and flew towards the army of 5,000 hunters. Get ready, they are coming, Charles shouted, seeing nearly 20 A+ rank monsters were coming towards them. Attack! Mio ordered the mages and the archers to launch their attack, and nearly 1,500 mages and archers launched their attack at the same time. Kukjiku, seeing thousands of elemental attacks and arrows coming towards them, Rocky also ordered the wyverns to launch their attack. Roar! All the wyverns roared out loud after receiving Rocky's order, and launched their attack towards the incoming attacks. Fire, water, earth, sound, and many different kinds of attack clashed in mid-air, and boom boom. Loud explosions filled the surroundings. The shockwaves of the attacks spread in all directions, and the ground started to shake because of the impact caused by so many attacks. Attack once again, Mio shouted when attacks of the wyverns and hunters cancelled each other. It's indeed difficult to deal with them with our low number, since they are trying to fight a defensive battle, but Adam said, and took out a formation plate from his storage ring. Let's see if they can survive just fighting a defensive battle. He poured his mana into the formation and activated it. Moon Howling Army Formation. Evan got this formation in chat-543. This is the end of this video. Thank you guys for listening. Hope you enjoyed and wish you wonderful rest of the day. The Silent Ruptors out.